Edwards rotates in at the back. He's got the football. Bumps into traffic and escapes. Donovan Edwards racing to the end zone. Michigan flexing immediately.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
First play fake, Green, over the middle, has a receiver, Traylon Ray, first play, Mountaineers!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And trying maybe to put this game away right now. Second down and goal, 13th play of the drive. Cook to the air, into the end zone, caught. And there's Luther Burden. Touchdown, Missouri.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
They stack the line of scrimmage. Fafita rolls, fires on the run. What a throw and catch. Cowering down the sideline. He is in. Touchdown, Arizona.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Dart fires wide open. Prescorn. Touchdown, Rebels.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
From the shotgun. That throw's intercepted. Pierce down the sideline. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on a Wednesday, and you're about to see an image in just a second or two of two teams that were in the semifinals, one that played for the national championship, and where they are with their two deep. We'll have that for you in just a moment, but because, as always, college football with the up and down roller coaster of everything, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak, Emery, Jack, and Garrett running the mothership today. And Emery already starting to work on what we have tonight at 10:30 on the local CW. This is 365 Sports. Thank you for being here today. Caleb Downs, of everybody that has entered the transfer portal anywhere at any time, perhaps the most talented of everybody, including some quarterbacks, of course, and others. Caleb Downs, high level, freshman All-American, Alabama, entered the transfer portal. And yet we'll have more on Alabama in just a second.
Yeah, this one, we were in it was announced last week that Nick Saban was leaving. He had said that the two hardest people to tell were Malachi Moore and Caleb Downs. I guess the school of thought is that he might, go to where Travaris Robinson is at Georgia, and that's probably where he'll go. But now that he's in there and he's a freshman All-American and he was so good, things could get weird. And you never know who's going to – you never know who's going to come out of the woodwork. There's probably no woodwork. It's like his phone probably hasn't stopped ringing or text messages going off since people found out he was in the portal.
Yeah, one of the highest, most rated, talented players to enter the portal in this particular era of college football, and a stud. A superstar type of player that has a lot more potential and is probably just basking in the glow of phone call after phone call and offer after offer and everything else that comes with being a star player jumping into the portal at this stage of the game. So, yeah, Caleb Downs, just one of many that are leaving Alabama now at this point post-Saban. It's been fascinating to watch that. You wonder when the bleeding will stop, but these few days that keep going by, it just seems like it's just slowly trickling out more and more. And I'm starting to wonder who do they have left at this point. But this was a name that was definitely at the top of the list of the most interesting, because you know that once he makes that decision, if it is to enter the portal, then every school in America is going to be coming after him. And that's what we're about to see because, yeah, Caleb Downs is a very busy man right now.
He is, and he can go anywhere he wants. He could have done that coming out of high school. So here's the secondary from Alabama. Here is who they have, and that doesn't include Downs. This is from earlier, Kyle Henderson. He's now in the portal. You have Pope to Georgia, Ricks to A&M, Little to FSU. Kentucky gets Story. 3 players headed to the NFL. A couple of them early entries, Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and also then Key. And then their coach, Travaris Robinson, very popular, great recruiter. He's at Georgia. And Nick Saban's specialty was secondary. So they not only lost their coach that they went to go play for, the head coach that they went to go play for, but a head coach who's always been very much involved in the secondary.
Yeah, it's just part of the transition. I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a nightmare for them for a little while, and it's uncharted territory because a lot of the Alabama fan base, not all of it, most of it, but a good number of the Alabama fan base have never known anything other than Nick Saban because he was around for so long. So, yeah, this is uncharted territory and just fascinating, more so than any other coaching transition, just because of how long he was there and the foundation that he had laid and just the consistency in recruiting. That's one thing with Kalen DeBoer. If you look at what deficiencies are there, what concerns are there, one of those things that you do get worried about is, can he recruit at the top level like Nick Saban did year after year after year? And you would think with NIL and just Alabama's brand that would mostly be the case, but there is still an art to it, right? And it's not just the coach, but it's the staff. And do you have the right chemistry and the right mix of guys and the right pitch and all those things? And that's something that's going to be fascinating because Alabama will throw some bags at guys and they'll throw some NIL money out there, but it doesn't guarantee that they're going to continue to rake in the same classes that they always did. So, yeah, there's a major talent exodus going on. They were accustomed to that because every year they turned over like 10 guys to the NFL, but this is a bit different because it's guys that are going other places. And I know that they've lost guys in the past, JoJo Earl, a number of guys have left and they've just kept reloading. But this is different because Saban's not sitting in the background, kind of the architect of it all. This is out of their control entirely. And so this is, really interesting to watch and just how many guys end up gone when all is said and done. You see right there, a lot of them not taking very long at all once they enter the portal to make their decisions. We'll see on Caleb Downs and some others. But, yeah, it's a kind of a mess right now, this whole roster thing. So you wonder if DeBoer is going to have that magic touch to be able to just reload the talent, because that was the thing, man. If Alabama was deficient in this area, they were still as talented, if not more talented, top to bottom on the roster than everybody in America.
Somebody, go ahead.
And that's not necessarily going to be the case any longer.
Somebody tweeted at me when I put that up. They went, "Oh, welcome to the real world."
Well, that's, look, Alabama is now getting the fans, like Craig, you said, that don't know. I mean, there's a whole generation of fans that don't, even the, ones who were alive when he wasn't the coach might have been really young, right?
Yeah.
That don't, like, if you're an Alabama student right now, you don't really know a time without Nick Saban as the head coach of Alabama. And it is a testament, tried and true thing about college football. Yes, the program is important. The institution and the history is important. You can't belittle it. But it doesn't matter, that history doesn't matter if the coach isn't elite. So, even Alabama, the most storied college football program in history, until Kalen DeBoer proves that he can win there, like Bear Bryant, like Gene Stallings, like Nick Saban did, then it's just another place with a good history.
Yeah, and that can change quickly. But
yeah,
you're gonna
I'm not
lose.
saying he can't. I'm just saying that's what he's up against.
Here's another player, a freshman All-American, Proctor, Jaden Proctor, starting offensive lineman. He's gone, transferring. And Kennington Lloyd-Smith III, by the way, will join us at 3:30 in the coverage of Alabama and what's going on with them.
Caden
Proctor, excuse me. Here's a depth chart of Alabama that was put up by Bo Elliott. He's with CBS Sports. There are even some...
Bud Elliott.
There is still some names that aren't even crossed out that have left. That's their two deep from last season. Now, you're going to have players because they're going to always have a lot of players that go to the NFL and some, but that does not include everybody else that has now entered the portal or is leaving. That's Alabama. They still have a lot of talent, but that gives you an idea. For a second, now look at Washington. Washington, where DeBoer was. Those that are yelled out, they're leaving. That does not include now Brailsford, their starting center. That does not include, Bernard, who was their backup wide receiver that was going to get a lot of playing time because everybody else is gone. That does not include backup cornerback or defensive back Vincent Holmes. So those two of the four teams.
Jeremy Bernard entered an hour ago.
That's what I said.
I thought you said that didn't include. Okay,
This person hasn't scratched it out yet.
Okay,
they have not
gotcha.
scratched it out yet because it was recent, and that's what I was mentioning. That does not show his name being scratched out yet. That's from Jeff Schwartz.
Gotcha.
So there's their depth chart. One was Alabama. This is Washington. Both affected by Nick Saban retiring and DeBoer leaving for Alabama.
Yeah, the thing with Alabama too is that they, all these other coaching jobs that have come open. There's been some big time programs, Notre Dame, Oklahoma over the last couple of years, and their rosters get picked apart pretty clean. But I think Alabama's is just so talented, and they have so many high rated players that were recruited by so many of the other big time schools and just various other schools that it just makes their buffet line now way more appetizing than probably any other job we've ever seen with the roster that's come open. I mean, would y'all agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, because Washington's roster opens and you're like, okay, great, who can we pick apart? Well, a lot of the guys you wanted are gone to the NFL. A lot of them, as you see crossed out there, are going to be headed elsewhere as well, and that'll be something that a lot of teams want to pick apart and look at. But that Alabama roster in particular, just from the depth standpoint, the stars standpoint, it's unique in its own little category. And so, yeah, there's a lot of teams that are feasting on that roster right now, and we'll pick apart Washington's, and you just wonder what's left over when all is said and done. So, yeah, the fun of being introduced, if you were Jed Fish or Kalen DeBoer, that was all great. But, man, as soon as that last press conference or whatever your last obligation was, you had to be on the phone and in that locker room and going to work to try and salvage what you can. And as we see, both have a lot of work to do because most of their roster is already gone, and it's been less than a week. So, yeah, it's amazing to watch how the turnover occurs so quickly now with the rules. But I think it's great for the players to have that opportunity. If you didn't expect a coaching change, that you can go move on, but it does make for some chaos.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Alabama's roster, like if you wanted to compare it like restaurant-wise, somebody else, leaves and you get, okay, that's good. They might be like a Subway. That's like a Morton Steakhouse giving out free meals. Like when it's open, it's just there like going.
All of it's prime beef.
Yeah, everything's great.
One of the things about all of this is that the Travaris Robinson story, and I don't remember who the name was, but somebody, when Kirby Smart got him to leave Alabama, somebody that covers the Southeast SEC said, this is a Godfather move because of what it could also represent. I'm thinking, okay, he's a secondary coach, he's a good recruiter, but Saban leaving is the major reason the dam broke. But Robinson is somebody that if they offered him maybe a co-defensive coordinator position or associate head coach, perhaps he stays, and some of these don't go. But that's where they are. Here's another one. DeAndre Robinson, who signed with Texas, and then Bo Davis left. Garrett Ross, thoughts were he would end up where Bo Davis left, right, for LSU.
Yep, that was the hope.
No, late yesterday evening, there started to be trending towards Florida. So that appears to be what he will do.
This is clearly a kid I would not be friends with.
Why do you say that?
Texas and then Florida, we don't have anything in common.
Yeah, you wouldn't see eye to eye on much, I don't think.
No, I'm sure. Look, he's a really good player, and good luck to him in Gainesville if that's where he does ultimately wind up. But yeah, they let him out of the letter of intent. I thought that was going to be to follow Bo Davis, but obviously he's off to another pasture.
Kendrick Blackshear, great player in high school at Duncanville, 5-star player. He's headed to Austin. He was at Alabama. Now, his career has not met expectations. He's been dinged up at times, but also has not been able to make much happen on the field. 25 tackles in 3 years, a forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, had a quarterback pressure last season, 16 tackles. He's had some injuries. He's back to the home state of Texas. UT, of course, is filling up with the portal. They've had a couple of leave, and some have gone to the NFL. They seem to be plucking who they want. This is a young man that they need somehow to get him to work. Not that they need him to start, but to see if he can reach the expectations coming out of Duncanville.
Well, this is one you want. I almost like, and I know he's an Alabama player, but his stats, are not like they didn't get the best Alabama linebacker. They got a guy that had a ton of potential that's coming back to his home state. I look at guys like this, like JUCO transfers. Like you're bringing this guy in. He doesn't have much eligibility. You want him to be able to play right away, and you hope you have a fit that's better for him than where he was before with Pete Kwiatkowski in that defense. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, he's not met those expectations at Bama.
No, but the hope is that you can get and scrape whatever he's got in the tank and have it maximized there in Austin. So we'll see. But, a nice enough pickup on paper. I don't consider it to the level of a Silas Bolden where there's a bit more proven there. But I know that he was a big-time recruit a couple years back, and everybody in the country wanted him, including Texas at that time. And I seem to remember A&M being hot and heavy with him. And, everybody was, I suppose. But, yeah, not coming in with – the greatest stats in the world, but doesn't mean he can't make a great impact next year. So, yeah, that's a name, if nothing else, and they need to replace a lot of guys. So that'll go and chip away at what they need to get done on that little to-do list this offseason. But they've been very active. They've certainly been, circling along with various others over that Alabama talent pool. And so they land a guy, and they'll probably land some others. And they also got the wide receiver as well, right? Isaiah Bond.
That was right into the weekend.
So so they've now a couple years in a row, Sarkisian going back to his old stomping grounds and grabbing players off that roster. But this is a little bit different, obviously, and he's got something to prove. So we'll see if he can get that done.
So of the semifinal teams, the national champion with Michigan played Washington, Texas, Alabama were knocked out immediately in the semifinals. From Stuart Mandel, here are the returning starters as of today. Texas with 14, Alabama with just 7. They've been rated. Michigan was a senior-laden type team, and Washington has been decimated. A lot of guys who entered the portal, but a lot of people also that entered the NFL draft and left for the NFL.
Yeah, Texas set up really well because they had only minor turnover in their coaching staff with Jeff Choate and Bo Davis leaving and maybe somebody else. But, they had they lost some dudes, no doubt. But to have 14 starters back, that's a pretty huge deal.
Let the hype begin if it hadn't already. I think it probably started already with the ending of that Washington game. There was already turning the page to next year, and now with recruiting season, that's always name a year, and somebody will be like 2012 or something random. If you follow it closely enough, you can probably spat off the year. But I can't remember the last year that they weren't hyper competitive in recruiting. It was Mac's dying days when they were like leaning down towards the 20s. And that was for a couple-year stretch, if I remember correctly. But beyond that, it was a little bit
longer than that. But you're right.
Yeah, then it maybe dragged into Charlie Strong, and eventually something had to change. But under Sarkisian, they've been pretty steady and near the top, and so they're always going to be talented. But when you do have now a pretty distinct advantage in the number of guys coming back, that hype's going to get rolling, and especially the more you add former Bama players or whoever else you're going to add through the transfer portal, that's going to drum up even more. And on that list, we'll see what Harbaugh does, but they might be the only one that returns their head coach.
Hell yeah, he might be gone too.
So that's already something. 2 of those 4 teams have already lost their head coaches now. So yeah, Texas is getting set up pretty nicely. I do think that what Paul said is accurate as well, though. There is the whole reload thing, but they lost some pretty pivotal guys. So
who, Michigan?
No, Texas.
Oh, Texas. I'm sorry. No, they did. Yeah.
It's one thing. Yeah, you go and recruit and Jonte Cooks and all this, but yeah, actually go and do it though is a different story. And so yeah, until we see them actually go out there and prove it, there's going to be the question about how quickly they can reload. But they're set up really, really nicely to reload from last year.
And former Oklahoma defensive coordinator Ted Roof headed inside the Big 12 to UCF to be their defensive coordinator, along with Addison Williams, who's now the associate head coach and co-defensive coordinator. So Ted Roof from OU to UCF. And he wasn't their defensive coordinator last year, but he's now headed to UCF.
Well, that derailed their season for a little while. Their defense was not very good. That and quarterback injuries, but they need a new thoughts on defense there with Gus Malzahn. They got KJ Jefferson coming out on offense. I think that's I was a big John Rice Plumlee fan, but he was not a guy who could really stay healthy. I think that's a bit of an upgrade over John Rice Plumlee, and we'll see how they can do. They've got to tackle people when they get to the line of scrimmage. They can't let them get to the second level. That was not even really the biggest problem. The bigger problem was they get to the second level to be in the third level because their linebackers weren't very good either. So we'll see what Ted Roof can do with that defense.
And Venables and Roof, by the way, they both decided it was time to move on. Sounds like that Oklahoma moved in a different direction. They did, and he's no longer there, so he was looking for an opportunity. He has one.
Yeah, I mean, they moved on from him, and he was, DC for 2 years in title, somewhat only because that Brent Venables had his fingerprints all over that defense as well. But, they pretty quickly and amicably went their separate ways. So good for Ted Roof to land on his feet. Nice for UCF to bring in a guy with a lot of experience at a couple of top programs like Clemson and Oklahoma. And not sure, haven't had a chance to go look if there's any prior relationship or connection with Malzahn and Ted Roof. But, good for him to land on his feet. Don't have any great preview or expectations based on the hire, only knowing that UCF's got to make some big strides, especially up front on defense, as Paul mentioned. But I think there's some things that you saw in year one that you're excited about. KJ Jefferson gets you a little bit excited about what you can do at the quarterback spot after the roller coaster of is he healthy, is he not, with John Rice Plumlee the last couple of years. They're checking boxes to improve into year two into the Big 12, and excited to see what UCF continues to do. But that's a respectable hire, and with their defense, you couldn't have really done too much worse, honestly. I mean, there weren't all bad spots. It wasn't all bad by any means, but that was what plagued them primarily in Big 12 play.
Here's something about Roof. Listen to where he's been, and I mean not very long at many places. Alabama as a GA, he played at Georgia Tech. West Georgia, Duke, UMass, West Carolina, Georgia Tech, Duke, Minnesota, Auburn, but that was when Chiswick was there. He was there for as DC, I think, for a year. UCF back in 11, Penn State, Georgia Tech, NC State, App State, Vanderbilt, Clemson, OU, and now UCF. Man, he's like a journeyman when it comes to. He's been quite a bit. Also, Derek Nix leaves Ole Miss for Auburn to become their new offensive coordinator. I saw Lane Kiffin or someone, it was Lane Kiffin talking about Derek Nix is still on campus with us maybe a week or so ago. He now takes the job with Hugh Freeze at Auburn.
And that seems, okay, and I don't know anything about Derek Nix other than he was the wide receivers coach at Ole Miss, and they've had good wide receivers, so he's clearly doing a really good job there. But and he might be ready to be a coordinator. But I do think with Hugh Freeze, it's kind of like a Brent Venables situation where you're not going to be calling the plays, I wouldn't think. Like Hugh Freeze is going to call the plays. Like that's what's going to happen. So the next thing for Auburn to do is figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, which, Miami and Auburn were the ones I thought would be the most desperate's the word I want to use. I think for a transfer QB, and Miami got their first choice, and probably everybody's in Cam Ward. But Auburn, you just haven't seen that from them. So I'm a little confused at what the plan is there on the South Plains.
Nix had been at Mississippi for 16 years, been on the staff at Ole Miss. In fact, remember when they had, there was some, I forgot what it was, but I think he might have been 1 year, been an interim coach at one point for Ole Miss, but 16 years on the Ole Miss staff, and now he heads to Auburn. Now there's this story here that might affect everybody, that if you were at all ever watching the regional networks, this came down earlier today, Joe Pompliano, Amazon. Remember them in the Pac-12 and all that? Amazon acquiring a minority stake in Diamond Sports Group, which of course is a regional sports network that filed for bankruptcy, leaving some sports teams, pro teams, kind of in the lurch of whether or not they're going to get paid or going to have games. This affects money. The regional money is the extra cash. And I saw John Blake today, who's the PR, media relations for the Rangers. And obviously that's good news for the Rangers because they were, Bally's. Diamond Sports Group. We'll have Bob Thompson today at around 4:30 to discuss what this actually means. And is this the start of Amazon dipping their toe in the water in a very small way but in a way to kind of test the waters.
Doesn't feel small when you've got all the teams that Diamond Sports Group had and you saved their company. Now, they're minority owners, I know, but to get all this money in there, I'm sure, I don't know what that stake is in Diamond. I hope it's good for fans. I hope it means that fans can see games and not for that much more cost to see I don't want to. The thing I didn't like about the Bally Sports online package was, look, if I just want to watch the Rangers, I just want to watch the Rangers. I hope that's still available to people if you're a Rangers fan or a Padres fan or whatever.
And that was a part of your cable bill.
Yeah. So that's where it was. It was really easy before that if you were a fan of the team in your regional area that you just flipped to Fox Sports Southwest, and depending on if you were in the Astros part of it or the Rangers part of it, that's what you got. And then sometimes you got the other one when the other one was off or early or whatever. It was fine, but yeah, I think it makes it more complicated. I'm glad that these teams will have, some security when it comes to, especially the Rangers.
37 teams, NBA, Major League Baseball, and hockey.
That's not a small thing. They're not dipping their toe. They're wading in. But I also don't think that it's great for the continuing state of American commerce that we just keep letting Amazon buy things.
This is from Bob Thompson. He'll join us again in about an hour. Someone mentioned this is the future of live sports, Amazon versus Apple versus YouTube TV, etc. Bob Thompson throwing $100 million at Diamond Sports Group to have streaming rights for 1 year with the NBA and NHL and 5 Major League Baseball teams seems a bit un-Amazon-like, in my opinion. I'm thinking they have some other ideas. So he'll join us on that today. And Patrick Craig sent me a quote from him. That's today at around 4:30. We'll also hear from Kennington Smith on Alabama. Also, the story by Antonio Morales, theathletic.com, on new Arizona coach Brent Brennan. When he was at San Jose State, he was there for 4 or 5 days leading up to a game against USC. Babe Laufenberg, Cowboys analyst, great at what he does, former NFL player, and he'll join us today at around 5 o'clock. Here is a picture of the World Series trophy in Waco, Texas, earlier at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. The Rangers had a contingent there. Eric Nadel was there. Cody Bradford, who joined us yesterday, was there. That was on display. People had a chance to take pictures with it. And also, I don't know if you want to get to all the other ones, Garrett, just 1 or 2 of them. There is now a area that is on display inside the Texas Sports Hall of Fame with a bunch of Ranger memorabilia, jerseys, hats, the lineup card, etc. That was in Waco today, and a great crowd today in Waco.
Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to go down there and see it.
Never thought I'd see a Rangers collection that actually was because they won the World Championship, and so that was really, really cool to be there at that earlier today. Just there for a few minutes today. Now, one final thing. Top 20 or top 10 basketball along with the Big 12 tonight in college basketball. West Virginia plays at Oklahoma. UCF plays at UT. Texas Tech, what a great one this could be. Tech and Houston on ESPNU. 18th-ranked Creighton against top-ranked UConn. Mississippi State at 8th-ranked Kentucky. These are the top 10 teams in action. Louisville at 4th-ranked UNC. North Carolina off to a great start. Last night, you have the tweet that I put up, Garrett? Kansas State with a huge win. Well, hello.
You're there.
Kansas State with a comeback win against Baylor, 68-64. And Baylor was 5 of 27 shooting threes, 9 of 19 missing at free throws. More not making, but missing them. They had no chance. As the game went on, you could almost just see Kansas State sucking the wind out of them, and they did. Great win for Jerome Tang. A lot of people have called this an ugly loss or uncalled. In the Big 12, you can't lose games that you should win. Now, I'm not talking about favored or whatever. You have a win, and especially home or away, you don't win that game, the next thing you know, you could be in a 3-game losing streak. You have to add them up in that left-hand column whenever you have that chance.
Yeah, they were sloppy last night shooting the ball, no matter where they were shooting it from, if somebody's in their face or not. And they still had a chance to win. But I will say this, if people are stressed out about it, Kansas State did get in the last part of the second half and 2 in overtime, like ridiculous shots that normally wouldn't go in, and like a three from a guy who hadn't made a basket in a month.
Hadn't played, yeah.
So
yeah.
like those things happen. Like it was a bit like
but don't put yourself in that position.
No,
some of the responses have been it was a quad one game. Kansas State, no matter what's a quad one team, so it's a loss to a quad one team. Craig, did you get a chance to look at most of that or any of that last night?
I watched some of it. I mean, I think that it's starting to become a deal now where can Scott Drew beat Jerome Tang?
0-3.
It's 0-3, and I don't want to create something. Coaches get all in their heads about the media driving. You're 0-3 though, so it's like, are you gonna beat this guy? And they'll get another opportunity, if not a couple, depending on how the Big 12 tournament seeding falls. But yeah, that was one that was there for the taking, and you let it slip through your fingers. But when I'm sitting here looking at 9 of 19 from the free throw line, I don't feel terrible for you at all. I think that pretty clearly alone, that single stat tells you the story, much less the 3-point percentage, much less, whatever K-State was doing on their end. But yeah, you go 9 of 19 from the free throw line and you lose by 4. I mean, please. I mean, it's pretty simple to me. Do the basics right and just play average basketball in basic areas of the game, and you win that game last night. But instead, you missed 10 of your 19 free throws, and that's just, to me, inexcusable. I mean, how are you shooting 9 of 19 from the free throw line?
Jaden Nunn had at least a couple of critical misses. They got fortunate with K-State, missed a free throw at the end that led to overtime, but they had point-blank opportunities for the dagger. And, Craig, you're right. You shoot 9 of 19 at the free throw line. And they had an edge in rebounds slightly. They had a better turnovers to assist ratio or assist to turnovers. They lose the game. They play in Austin on Saturday night against the University of Texas. When we come back, he covers Alabama. Kennington Smith III on what is going on in Tuscaloosa, and can they recover part of their roster or some of it? This is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
During the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, get incredible deals on our entire inventory selection of new Ram trucks, Jeeps, SUVs, Chrysler sedans, or sporty Dodge. Shop in-store or online today and drive into 2024 with confidence and excitement.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repair too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We just spent the first half hour to start the show with a lot of headlines, and also the two teams that have had their rosters too deep, etc., pillaged in a lot of ways, some because of moving on to the NFL, some because they're in the portal, some because of what. And Kennington Smith III, theathletic.com, covers Alabama and joins us on 365 Sports. Kennington, thank you for your time. Is it almost like transfer portal PTSD in Tuscaloosa right now?
Yeah, it's crazy right now in Tuscaloosa. You think about this situation that Alabama is in. It's kind of hard to put into perspective when you think about a team that's as talented as this on paper, that is open and exposed to other rosters poaching that talent away, but there's not a portal window open for everyone else for Bama to try to plug those same holes. So they're kind of a sitting duck right now, and that's going to be the case for about 3 more weeks. And, when the dust settles, we'll have a clearer picture of what this roster is and what they'll need to do in the spring window. But it's been a chaotic week for the program for sure.
So Kalen DeBoer was going to have to reset a roster no matter where he went. Do you get an idea about where he's going in the portal right now, or is he just trying to keep all the guys who have not gone to the portal on the roster right now?
Yeah, I think the important thing is roster retention. You have to keep the current players in house, because at the end of the day, if you're somebody who pays close attention to recruiting rankings, the 24/7 Sports Composite had 2023 Alabama's most talented roster in the country when you think about the number of blue chip players. So the talent is in house. It's a matter of Kalen DeBoer and his staff being able to get in front of as many guys as possible, meet with as many guys as possible, to try to keep the roster intact ahead of spring practice, and then go through a spring practice, let the players get acclimated to your coaching style and your system. And then at the end of spring practice, players can, exit, and they'll have a clearer picture of what their roster is and what holes they need to plug. So I do think retention is at the top of the list, but that's not to say that they're not going to try to add via the portal right now in this moment. There are reports that, their top defensive back, Jabbar Muhammad, is visiting Alabama this weekend, and secondary is obviously a position of need. So Alabama's trying to plug a few holes before spring practice, but I think retention is the number one goal, and everything will kind of take care of itself on the back end.
Kennington, I have to imagine after seeing Saban take the podium so many times, it was a bit surreal to see Kalen DeBoer with that Alabama logo. But what were your thoughts and what were your impressions after hearing him for the first time in that press conference?
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out the most is the confidence that he has. He's someone who's very secure in his own skin, and I think that's a huge prerequisite for somebody who is replacing Nick Saban. And he was very upfront in saying that Saban's going to continue to have access to the program, and he welcomes his input, and he's actually going to require that Saban, get some input on what the program can continue to get better at. So he's someone who embraces the situation that he's in. I think he kind of recognizes some of the blind spots that he may have, like not having Southern ties and never coached in the South, and he is filling out his coaching staff with people who are, proven in the South, have Southern ties, proven recruiters, good coaches to kind of help fill those gaps. So by all accounts, it's a good hire and somebody who obviously knows how to win. You look at his track record; it's as impressive as any. And Alabama made the right decision in my mind, but he's kind of in a situation where it's kind of like drinking water out of a fire hose. There's a lot going on, and it seems chaotic right now. But once things level out, I think he'll have a chance to get his feet up under him, and you'll start to see, Alabama trending upward.
Can you clarify Travaris Robinson now at Georgia? Alabama tried to bring him back. Was there something that DeBoer could have done prior to Georgia offering Travaris Robinson an opportunity or a job or a title?
Yeah, I think in just my opinion of the situation, I feel like maybe, Travaris Robinson was looking for, the defensive coordinator duties straight away. I know that there were interviews going on. Even Nick Saban was in on interviews for certain assistant coaches, so maybe he felt like there wasn't a sure thing he was going to be the defensive coordinator at Bama. There was an opportunity available at Georgia, and Alabama tried to do everything they can to bring him back into the fold. But ultimately, he decided to go to Georgia, and you see the effects of that in the transfer portal right now. You think about that defensive back position. Nick Saban retires, and the defensive backs were his position group, and then you see Travaris Robinson, lead to Georgia. Defensive coordinator Kevin Steele retires as well. So a lot of people who are connected to that defensive back room have left the program, and that's a main reason why defensive back is the most portal out position on the team right now.
What do you think of what he's done, particularly Kalen DeBoer, with the defensive staff of plucking guys that were head coaches, Kane Womack and Mo Linguist, coming aboard to try to hit the ground running on that side of the ball, which, again, loses a long-time, great college football assistant in Kevin Steele, and they're going to have to replace a ton of talent anyway, like you said.
Yeah, I think I like the hires. I think it's pretty uncommon that you see somebody being able to poach two existing head coaches and add them to assistants on your staff. These are guys who are under the age of 40 years old, young, should be able to relate to recruits. They have Southern backgrounds, and they have had success in coaching their respective positions and at some level as a head coach in Division I. So I like the hires. I think Freddie Roach being retained was huge. Alabama alum, obviously Southern ties, has done a great job with the defensive line, and we'll see what happens with the linebacker position. But Kalen DeBoer, his strategy is starting to reveal itself. I think on offense, he's going with people who he's familiar with and continuity, continuing what they did at Washington and other places. And on defense, he's going for head coaches, people who know the South, young, hungry, and successful coaches. So by all accounts, it looks like a strong initial coaching staff, and it'll be interesting to see how they gel once they kind of all get together and get their feet under them.
Caden Proctor entered the portal here just recently, but Caleb Downs hit that portal like a nuclear bomb going off across the country. What were your impressions after seeing him this past season?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Downs is pretty incredible. You think about all of the great players that Nick Saban has coached, and you could argue that Caleb Downs was the most decorated freshman of them all. He was National Freshman of the Year, the Sean Alexander Award. He was an All-American. He was SEC Freshman of the Year, and he was the first ever freshman to lead Alabama in tackles, and that's a record that dates back over 40 years. So, super accomplished player. Sky is the limit, and for someone so young, he was seen as a reliable player and a leader on the team. So that, above all, is the most massive loss that Bama has suffered in the portal, and it's going to be difficult to replace a talent like that.
Kennington, is there so they're losing players. That's obvious. We showed the two deep, and there's a lot of lines crossing out names, including today with Downs and Proctor, et cetera. There's still time, about a month before the last signing day, maybe less than that now, actually 2 or 3 weeks, plus they eventually can get some to come there. Is that enough time, in your opinion? They still have talent on the roster, but is that enough time to meet the expectations?
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be the challenge for Alabama fans, is to temper the expectations. I think Saban created a culture and a beast where it was the national championship or bust type of season year in and year out, and they were able to play under that standard under Nick Saban. But this is a new coach, this is a new time period, this is a new era of college football. So I think if you're setting your expectation at making the college football playoff, I think this is a team that at this moment has a skeleton to do so. There's a lot of talent returning on the team. There's a lot of young talent. And to your point, when the transfer portal window opens up in April, Alabama is going to be the destination school. There are kids and there are players across the country that are seeing what's happening at Alabama. And when the portal opens in the spring, Alabama is going to be in a situation where it's a premier team, premier brand that has needs at certain positions. And when players enter the portal in the spring, they're going to be at the front of the line for a lot of high-level players. So I think that there's an opportunity to revamp the roster in the post-spring window, and we'll see what happens when the dust settles. We don't even know who's going to be on Alabama's team going into spring practice. So I think it's kind of premature to kind of project out the team and what it could be. But just in my opinion, I think if you look at the young talent and what they could, should, or are expected to add in the portal in the spring window, this is going to be a viable team next year.
Well, and look, they haven't suffered the major loss at quarterback like other teams have either in the portal, at least yet. I mean, not to say that it couldn't because everything's in the water, but being able to bring back Jalen Milroe and Simpson and Lonergan, at least at that position, saves Kalen DeBoer and staff probably a lot more time than they would have to go looking for, tight ends and wide receivers and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got one of the best quarterback, rooms, certainly in the SEC, you could argue, in the country. Justice Haynes and Jim Miller at running back. They have a good tight end room. They have receivers who have potential on the roster. Tyler Booker on the offensive line, Jaden Roberts on the offensive line, and they got a couple of stars on defense as well. Malachi Moore at safety, linebackers Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. I could go on and on, but this is a roster that has high level, all SEC level players on it. The depth is really what is hurting Alabama right now in the transfer portal. They're not losing a lot of the mainline stars outside of the Caleb Downses, but the depth at certain positions is really hurting them right now, and that's going to be something to watch as we move forward.
Do you think Saban would have done this if he'd known what the shrapnel would look like?
Well,
or maybe that's why he left in the first place, because he knew that all this, this is part of college football now.
Yeah, I think no matter what time period he was going to retire, I don't think it was ever going to be a great time. I guess the most ideal time would be, let's say if Bama didn't make the SEC championship and he retired at that point, well, they would be able to pull guys in as guys left, but there would still be a bowl game to prepare for. So there would just be a lot of things happening no matter what point in the calendar it would be. So there really isn't a great time. This is the era of college football that we're in, and it's something that we're going to have to watch moving forward is the effects that a coach retiring or leaving the program at a particular part of the year has on that program. And if Jim Harbaugh decides to go to the NFL with Michigan, the same thing is going to happen to them. So it's even going to intensify the topic should that happen. So I think it's something that college football is going to have to reevaluate and fix the calendar to try to mitigate some of these potential risks.
Kennington, it's been a busy time for you all of a sudden. What were you doing when you heard that Nick Saban was going to retire?
Okay. Are y'all ready for this?
Yes, sir.
True story. It was my birthday. I was halfway from Tuscaloosa to Atlanta, my hometown. I was meeting my family for dinner. So I'm halfway there, and my phone starts blowing up. So I called my parents. I canceled dinner. I looked up the nearest Starbucks in my GPS. Luckily, there was one a mile away, and I posted up in that Starbucks for the next 3 hours. And then I drove back to Tuscaloosa.
Happy birthday, Kennington, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. With everything that's happening in the portal, then spring practice and summer recruiting, I think I'll wait till the dead week in July to celebrate my birthday.
I don't know if there ever is going to be a dead week in college football ever again.
I hope you get to do it before then.
Yeah, good for you though. I mean, you're doing your job. You're a baller when it comes to that. To stop, and you knew you had no choice. And hopefully, your mom and dad. Obviously, you mentioned your parents, and you'll have fun when you see them eventually. But maybe they can come see you and have dinner in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, no, my parents are huge college football fans. So they understood it. Yeah. They understood what it meant in that moment. And, like you said, this is my job, but this is a historic moment. And this was an opportunity for me to be a part of history and continue to be a part of history. I mean, everything that happens from this point on, post-Saban, is going to feel like a monumental moment because it's going to feel so new. So just to be in this moment, I feel honored, and my birthday was memorable, if nothing else.
Thank you, Kennington. Great stuff. A lot of great insight. Good luck going forward with all the things that are happening almost, it seems like, about every other hour with the Crimson Tide. Kennington Smith III.
That's a unique one. I mean, like Ross Dellinger was about to go on vacation, right?
Somebody was on their way to take a. They were taking a cab ride to like the airport to go to Cabo.
Yeah.
And then somebody else was on their way to another island, and then all of a sudden the news hit.
Well, yeah, that's why coaches have complaints now about the calendar. There's no time to actually take a breath because there's something constantly that's in the process, whether it's the portal or the recruiting side or the actual season itself. So what should be a dip after bowl season is really the ramp up now when you have a couple of coaching changes like the ones that you have here, and suddenly two very talented rosters and one of the more talented rosters, in modern day college football as far as just a stars rankings and things like that. Suddenly it's just a free for all to go and run into Toys R Us and grab what you want off the shelves, right? You still got to pay something for it, but suddenly all these toys that were off limits or these items that were off limits or whatever, how you want to categorize it, these talents are now there back on the shelves and able to be purchased again or recruited again, I should say. I hate that's how that sounds, but I mean, it's also the way that it is in some ways, but I don't mean it, in a negative light. But yeah, I mean, the recruiting side of this is just never ending, it seems like. And so here we are, and every coach in America who is busy with other things is suddenly like, well, let's take a look at that roster over there in Tuscaloosa. And rightfully so, because they have accumulated a lot of talented guys over the years, and they were going to be set to be very good again next year. And now here it is, a free-for-all. And so, this is fascinating to watch for Alabama.
I'm curious about the guys who, because they've lost. It's not only just like some veteran players, but it is also the guys who are going to rise and maybe or compete for starting jobs at Alabama.
Next man up.
Next man up. But they haven't yet. So sometimes you get like, I think people are like, oh, he was at Alabama. Nick Saban anointed him as the next wave, and you go and get him, and you better have evaluated him well and make sure he fits, or you've just, you bought something at the Alabama store that, didn't belong there anyway.
Hey, they got work to do.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, here's from Matt Zenitz, who does a great job with 247 Sports.
And by the way, people are loving this.
Loving
Alabama's downfall potentially, or at least the fact that they're suffering a little bit because typically everything goes their way.
No,
now they might lose games
ever since he arrived.
They might not lose, or they might not win the Natty every year like they haven't in a couple of years now, 3 years now at this point, right? Or is it long?
Georgia, and Michigan.
Well,
yeah.
But yeah, so it was already one of those things where you kind of felt like, oh, they're not perfect, but now it's just it's so different because it's no longer being run by Saban that you don't really know what to expect. And I've seen plenty of Alabama fans who are coping. They're like, hey, if you look at our history, we've been good and this and this and this and every decade and blah, blah, blah. You take out the 90s and blah, blah, blah. But still, man, you're replacing Nick freaking Saban. Like, there is no guarantee, no matter what history says. And, certainly recruiting-wise, you have no assurances that you're going to have what you just had for the last 15, 20 years.
There's maybe Kirby Smart and a couple of other players or coaches, that would pick up the phone and call a prospect that might be able to be in the same conversation with Nick Saban.
Yeah, but even and Kirby's he's in the pole position right now, but he's still not. He has 5 more titles to win before he can just call somebody up. And that's the thing I think is going to be
a lot closer than everybody else, though.
Yes, that's true. But it is interesting because a lot of the guys who are leaving are only leaving. They don't have any kind of attachment to Alabama that runs deep in their blood. Their attachment was to Saban, which is how it is. Your attachment is to the coach. And so, a lot of them, I think you go back and look, are probably in their second or third choice school. They went back to a coaching staff that they liked. And I think that happened a lot with Nick Saban, maybe more than any other coach in history where, man, I really love Tennessee. I'm going to go to Tennessee. I'm going to play at Tennessee. I had a good time there. I really like Josh Heupel. That's going to be great. I think Tennessee's the fit for me. And then one day you sit down and bring,
Yeah.
and it's Nick Saban.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I did like Tennessee, but I do think I need to see about
He won
Nick Saban.
more head-to-heads than he lost. So
Yeah.
Here's another note about this change at Alabama that I just saw this from, again, Matt Zenitz. Kalen DeBoer's support staff. Nobody may have had more analysts than Alabama. In fact, then others cranked theirs up. Texas, of course, I remember a story when they started adding analysts among other schools. Zach Mettenberger, former LSU quarterback, was on the support staff. He's gone. Charlie Strong, gone. Ken Wisenhunt, who's got a lot of NFL blood in him, gone. There are a couple of guys that he left, or that he kept. Reese, of course, is gone. Inside linebackers coach, offensive line coach, and he's replaced most of those. The Travaris Robinson one, of course, was a big deal. So there's about maybe 2 or 3 dozen support staff, analysts, etc. And I saw a guy who's their like social media videographer who said the other day, like yesterday, that he's on his way out. That's part of any time there's a coaching change.
I mean, that's turnover. I mean,
No,
that's to be expected.
That's what I'm saying. But Charlie Strong still knows some football, despite the problems he had as a head coach wherever he's been.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, who knows what
He'll
other
get picked up
opportunities
by
that he
LSU or
has? I mean,
something.
I mean, he's at worst going to be an analyst at another SEC school. So yeah, I mean, the head coach leaves, things change, and the other stuff, like all the things that you mentioned, like that's no matter what the era of the NCAA was, that was going to happen if you had a coaching change.
Mm-hmm.
It's different now that you have 30 support staffers and like 5 of them are like former head coaches at this level. That's what's weird about it, but I don't see that as a big deal. I mean, you can go get analysts. It's the talent, though. I mean, that's the part that makes this interesting. Like, okay, you lost Charlie Strong. All right, go hire Gary Patterson next season or whatever. But you can't replace Caleb Downs just like that with a quick hire or a Caden Proctor or go on down the list. So this is going to be a focal point for college football for the next few days and however many weeks, because it's just nothing that we've ever seen before, and especially in an era like this where a coaching change isn't just a coaching change, it's potentially a demolition of the entire program if you don't do it right. And Alabama's not going to be that extreme, don't get me wrong, but they are in for potentially a very rude awakening given how high the bar was set by the previous guy.
It didn't look like it was changing, but going only up.
It looked like he was only going to stay steady and if anything, rise up again at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to see this much talent suddenly flooding the portal, along with all the guys who are sitting. Like, imagine being the guys who are sitting in there and all of a sudden here comes like 25 Alabama guys and 3 of them, maybe are in your position group or something. But yeah, it's amazing to watch and try to keep track of.
Antonio Morales, our new Arizona football coach. Brent Brennan, also Bob Thompson on the Amazon and the Diamond Sports Network, getting a piece of that. What does all that mean? Babe Laufenberg, Paul's Top 5, this, and we appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, or in downtown Waco on Franklin. That is the place to go if you're looking for the best in craft beers, the best in local craft bourbons. So, yeah, they've got all your normal things, your Jack Daniels, your Jim Beam, those national brands. But also, they have the best when it comes to stuff that's made right here in the state of Texas, whether it's Balcones, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers. Love the Garrison Brothers, love Balcones, all that's great. And they have all that, every kind of variety. It's amazing what they have. If you're a collector, a connoisseur, whatever you want to say, that's a good place to go. And, go on your whiskey journey at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and now in downtown Waco. Plus, at the original location, you've got the speedy drive-through window, great customer service. You cannot beat it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, now with 2 locations to serve you.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
We will have Antonio Morales, theathletic.com, who normally covers USC, but when they were leading up to a game, San Jose State, he was entrenched with San Jose State, Brent Brenham, who's now, of course, the head coach at Arizona. I read the story, saw Antonio tweet about that, and thought he would give us great insight on who the Wildcats are getting now as their head coach. Antonio, thanks for your time. Brenham, your thoughts when the job opened? He has ties there. His wife went there. There's other ties there. Are they getting what they need at this particular time after the, I guess you could say, trauma when Fish decided to leave?
Yeah, they're in a hard spot, and Brent Brennan almost got the job 3 years ago when Jed Fish did. So he made logical sense from that point of view as a guy who narrowly missed it last time. And he's done a good job at San Jose State since he didn't get it last time. So I think it made sense for them. He's someone with ties to the school, someone who's done a good job at a place that doesn't have very many resources. And everything in my mind, he gets the most out of what he has on hand. And he didn't have a lot in San Jose. So now that he has some semblance of resources, I think he can do good things at Arizona.
Antonio, can you go into a bit of detail there on those lack of resources? Because there are many programs, even in his own conference, that by comparison are awash in resources. And even, as you go up the line, if you compare it to something like Georgia, that Georgia essentially has butlers and maybe even robots that we don't know about that can do things for them. But San Jose State might operate on the most shoestring budget of any football program at that level in America.
Yeah, it's one of the least resource programs in the FBS. You had to fundraise to get the team breakfast in the facility every day. I mean, they still can't afford lunch and dinner. They get swipe cards so they could eat at Chipotle or wherever they find on campus, Qdoba or whatever. So as far as the nutrition program, it was like non-existent at San Jose State. The position coaches would have to set up their own drills because there was only one student manager for each side of the ball. The strength coaches would have to lug their own Gatorade around to give to the players. The practice field, the goalposts were broken, and they shared it with the soccer programs. This is just stuff you don't see at bigger programs, and maybe even in programs like San Diego State or Boise State or Fresno State, who San Jose State competes against. The San Jose State definitely doesn't have the money of those schools when they're expected to beat them. And they did beat Fresno State this year. They did beat San Diego State. They almost beat Boise, who won the league. They beat UNLV, which was a good team. A couple years ago, they beat Arkansas. They played Auburn pretty tough. 2 years ago, they almost beat they didn't almost beat USC, but they gave USC a good game for about 3 quarters this past year. So they've just continually punched above their weight class.
So, Antonio, what was it about Brennan's kind of attitude towards the lack thereof? I mean, you play the hand that you're dealt. You only have what you have, and you can't go to the ATM machine and go grab it out, although now he's got a bit more money in his pocket. But what stood out to you about just the way he or his staff approached not having the best of everything and doing the best they can with what they had?
It was interesting sitting in on those staff meetings because Brennan, I think they knew they were up against it, but he didn't want to go out of his way to complain about it or anything. He told them all we could do is play good football, and that's what they did. They had a tough non-conference schedule this past year where it was USC and Oregon State. They had to play at Toledo, which won 11 games. They started 1-5, and they still kind of stuck through that and won 6 games to end the season. That was a good job by that staff. It was one of the better in-season turnarounds in the country this past year. And, that staff and that program just did a good job of sticking together. I think if you look back at 2020, they faced probably some of the toughest COVID restrictions, if not the toughest COVID restrictions in the country. I think they had to play games in Nevada because they couldn't play in the Bay Area. And they still won the Mountain West. They still went 7-0. And then they had a little down year after that, and then they came back and they made 2 straight bowl games. So they never really went out of their way to complain about it. They knew it was tough. They knew it was going to be a challenge, but they still got the job done.
So they've played Texas, Oregon, Utah, Arkansas, Auburn, among some of the teams, like you mentioned, even USC, during the time he has been there. So is he one of those, it's not so much just like he likes to build a chip on his shoulder. He thrives and enjoys. I'm sure he'd love to have better facilities where he goes, but it's almost as if he thrives in that type of scenario.
Yeah, I think he knows there's challenges wherever you go. Those were the challenges that were there at San Jose State, and he's going to have challenges at Arizona. We saw Arizona even when they were doing well, and they looked like they were on a positive trajectory. Last year, they were still losing players in the portal to like USC and other places. So it's new challenges at Arizona, and I'm sure he's excited about the facilities there and what's going on and what they have. Obviously, it's a stark contrast to what he had at San Jose. So I think he's looking forward to it, but everywhere there's going to be challenges. It's a different level of expectations that he'll have at Arizona than he did at San Jose.
He has a big job in front of him in keeping a very good quarterback and very good wide receiver on that roster. It appears right now that they're leaning towards staying. By the way, you've talked about him. Would you call him a player's coach that would be able to quickly get something like that done in the face of what's probably got to be overwhelming tampering coming in for Noah Fifita and McMillan?
We'll see what happens with roster retention, but he's definitely a player's coach. I say that, but he's also not afraid to be intense and be direct and be all that with his players. I saw those practices and I saw his staff meetings. He's not afraid to be direct with anyone, and so I think he is a player's coach, and I think he's a very easy guy to rally behind. I think that's why you've seen so many people congratulate him and so much outpouring of joy for him on social media. Just because he is a genuine dude and a very likable guy, and kind of what you see is what you get. He's very relaxed, very laid back, but also serious when he needs to be. And I think players will like him. I think if you saw any of the meetings or any of the videos that San Jose State put out, it's very apparent.
Antonio, you also, of course, mainly cover USC, and that's why you were at San Jose State embedded with them as they were going to play Lincoln Riley and USC. USC's been kind of quiet. They did get the transfer quarterback. They needed that. Then the young man that opted into, I guess, an earlier year that's a highly, if not the highest ranked player in in high school football as a quarterback. What would you say? How would you describe their offseason?
It's been different for sure. There's not as much hype as there has been the past couple of years. I think people aren't expecting much from them in 2024. Going into the Big Ten, they had a disappointing 2023. One of the bigger disappointments in the sport in 2023. So it's a different kind of, it's more of a keep your head down, try to do what's right sort of offseason for them. And Lincoln Riley hired a good defensive staff, but there's still plenty of questions about them going forward and recruiting and how they hold up in the line of scrimmage. So they've been quiet, like I said, keeping their head down, but we'll see what happens and kind of if they make any more additions in the portal.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Appreciate your time. And as we move forward the offseason, eventually we hope to get to spring drills where we talk more and more about football. But then again, it's every day the portal, NIL, et cetera. And who knows when we have something with realignment that pops up too. But he was embedded with San Jose State as they were preparing to play Lincoln Riley and also USC.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. I mean, it's remains to be seen type of a thing. I like the fact that they were basically able to, get commitments or recommitments right out of the gates from a couple of their top players. Remains to be seen until they hit the field next year. In college football now, like you can't guarantee anything. It feels like, but got to get to work. And the financial situation in Arizona is not great, clearly university-wise, but it's still a massive step up from what he was dealing with. So let's see what he can do with, actually being able to put 3 meals out there for his football players, or goalposts that aren't broken, or everything else that he was dealing with at San Jose State. So made the best out of the situation. And, don't know a ton about him other than, the typical words that have been written after a coach is hired, and interested to see what he can do. It's a bummer though, because Jedd Fisch was rolling in hot, and that was going to be a team to watch, and now they still could be, but there's a long way to go, and a lot of questions still to be answered before we can still feel as confident as we were just about a week ago before the Jedd Fisch move occurred. So yeah, it's an interesting time for Arizona. Hate it for their fan base. They had started to get riled back up, and then boom, just like that, the guy who's the architect of that excitement is now gone. But they still got some good players on that roster, and let's see what Brett Brennan can do, and trying to keep that thing going and keep it building as they go enter a new league next year.
It's way too early to think about who are the favorites for the Big 12 starting the 2024 season with Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and ASU coming in. Kenny Dillingham's still there, obviously, Dion, and then Coach Whittingham and what he's done. But they would have been in that conversation.
Yeah.
We had that discussion yesterday about who maybe somebody left out in a tweet or two, but they would absolutely have been in that conversation, and still might if Fafita comes back, among others.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of questions still left to be answered, and I think all of us have yet to go and fully comb through every roster for 2024, because we're not even halfway to spring ball at this point. But, in spring we'll get a better feel for, okay, what all everybody has, and then we'll have to kind of reset that again after spring ball, because inevitably guys will enter the portal. But right now it's very much in flux there in Tucson of what that's going to look like. But yeah, prior to the Jedd Fisch move, and knowing that because they were going to have consistency, they weren't going to have to worry about big, massive roster turnover like they're now having to potentially deal with. Yeah, you could confidently say that with Noah Fafita back and McMillan at wide receiver and various other players on that roster, that they are in that group of teams that you feel like could be favorites or had good odds to go and win the Big 12 next year. And now you can't say that at all. You can't say that whatsoever, because there's just too many question marks. But yeah, that's part of the deal, and we'll see what they do. But he's got some expectations now and some proof that you can win there and win recently, and beat Oklahoma to win the bowl game, and build off that as best you can and retain what you can, and then put your own spin on it. So yeah, excited to see what Brennan does with it.
And, of course, the quarterback that was at Arizona, DeLaura, he's now at UTSA, huh?
No, Texas State.
Texas State, excuse me. And then, of course, the story about Finley on his way out. It's just like a churning of like a washer and dryer going on at one time.
Yeah, Jaden DeLaura. I don't know that his legal issues are entirely wrapped up. I think that there was still something out there. But apparently, TJ Finley told I forget the reporter's name, that he had no idea that was coming.
Yeah.
And he was feeling he was going to be in San Marcos, and then all of a sudden he gets word that here comes Jaden DeLora and said he had no idea, and so he entered the transfer portal, which I have a lot of respect for G.J. Kinney. I just can't imagine how that happened and not notifying the guy and letting him know that you're bringing in another starting, because Jaden DeLora's not coming to San Marcos to be the backup. Like, if anything, you just, you look around a little while longer, but that was puzzling when that headline came across. I still don't quite understand, nor do I know that Bobcats fans understand, but I need to read a little bit more on it tonight and see if there's some more clarity. But yeah, based on what TJ Finley apparently said yesterday, he was blindsided by that like everybody else. So yeah, something strange there for it to occur that way, because he had a pretty good season for Texas State. So yeah.
See, and there, when you see the coming and going of whatever, Bob Thompson in about 8 to 10 minutes, but I've known GJ for a while. We've had him on many times, but that doesn't seem right. If, in fact, that's true, that you don't tell the guy that helped lead you to a bowl game in your first year that,
upset Baylor that in your first game is on the road.
And was fantastic in that game.
Here we go. Kef Sardello, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that a little bit wrong, Texas State sports reporter. But Kef putting it out there yesterday, just spoke to TJ Finley. He said he wasn't aware of Jaden DeLora's commitment to Texas State before it happened yesterday. When asked if his plan was to come back to the Bobcats before yesterday, he said 100%. So there you go. I was surprised by that as well. I mean, I know you got a great relationship with GJ.
Yeah.
So, yeah, surprised that it worked out the way that it did, because you thought at minimum, and that's what we were talking about yesterday, like at minimum you give a heads up, but I was like, how much better is he?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, slightly better running the ball. I mean, even that could probably be argued, I'm sure. But I mean,
I thought TJ Finley was really good.
Well, they're different though. They're
no.
different. I mean, Jaden DeLore is a fantastic athlete, and so is TJ Finley. But I mean, they're different, but not to the extent where you're like, well, DeLore will take them to a better bowl game, and
especially in that conference at that level. Like, I'm not sure, if he's going to help you win 2 more games,
I guess,
like that, and that's what I know. That's what you're trying to do. But yeah, I was really surprised to see that. And so when I first saw it, I thought Jaden DeLore to Texas State. I thought, TJ Finley must be out of eligibility. Which,
well, the one thing that there was there, if there was anything, is I guess I saw one argument. And it wasn't an argument, but one person was like, well, he took a while to state that he was coming back, so they had to start to pivot. And, like, maybe that was something to it, but I don't know.
Still just call up and ask him.
I know. I'm just playing the other side of, like, trying to make it make sense, because otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense, is I think what we're all getting at is, like, how do you just not bring him back? Or even if you weren't going to, like, what's the reasoning why? If you don't want to tell us that, that's fine, but at least tell him. Like, tell the guy who's going to expecting to be your starter.
And I admit this, remember the arguments back 30 years ago when I was doing talk radio about players and getting paid or whatever. My God, they're getting an education. And, of course, things have exploded. And that story there is even more reason why let them go wherever anytime they want. Would be nice to at least limit the number of times. And then yet again, Finley's transferred before. And so let's say he was limited to 2. Let's say he was limited to 2 transfers and he had nothing left. And in this case, no, he should be able to transfer because if that's true, that is in fact true.
Yeah, I want to say that's based on what I just gleaned off, that if they had a conversation behind the scenes, and that's not public, but that's what TJ Finley told this Texas State reporter, was that he had no idea that DeLore was coming in and that he was planning on being at Texas State. So whether that's, we can only go off what we read and see and whatnot. But
all right,
yeah, I like in just the simplest terms, like that's why they keep winning these things when it comes to appeals. Is that like, all right, well, if you put a restriction on me, and then out of the blue, this coach he wakes up on Monday and decides I'm out, and somebody else can come in that's within their 2. Well, then what am I supposed to do?
Right,
that's completely out of my control. So I mean, I don't like. You talk about all the rules or things to like try to wrangle this, like outside of, again, a collective bargaining agreement, there's no way to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Bob Thompson on today's news about Amazon, which was for so long when it comes to the Pac-12 and the future and streaming and whatever else, Well, they're jumping into that regional sports network, Diamond Sports Network. It could affect your favorite team, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL. What does all this really mean? And is this them dipping their toes in the water? And as Bob said earlier, $100 million seems like they're maybe doing more than that. We'll have his thoughts about this. Also, a couple of quotes from Patrick Crakes, both, of course, former CEOs and also sports networks. And that's next on 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, premium quality MRIs, convenient and affordable, and that's Ideal. On average, an MRI costs over $1,100 on at Ideal MRI, it's $497 every time, or less, because of the insurance that can be filed and maybe a few other ways to get that price down for you. I have told you the stories about people, viewers who have come in from Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas to get an MRI that their doctor wanted, and they've come to Waco, saved about $600, $700 or more dollars, and also the time of it. Even if you have to drive an hour or two or longer to get here, when you get to, well, one, you get the appointment set up, and that's pretty simple. But when you get there and you get inside their front door, you're not going to be there for a long time. There's always probably somebody else that's having an MRI taken. You're not going to have to wait. I cannot remember a time when I was there, and I've had 3 MRIs in their beautiful technology, the MRI machine. I've never had to wait more than about 15 or 20 minutes. It's not going to wait 45 minutes to an hour. The techs and specialists are great. The girls at the front are fantastic, and the machine is, well, it's state-of-the-art technology. $497 or less every single time. It's inside the Central Texas Marketplace off I-35 on the southern part of Waco. IdealMRI.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
One of the best things I ever did was one night, afternoon, whenever it was, watching a timeline of either those I follow or just kind of keeping up with what the news was, and Bob Thompson popped up. You know who he is, former Fox Sports executive, very much a go-to guest that we had throughout all the realignment, what was going to happen. And he joins us today because I saw Amazon pop up on my timeline today about the regional sports networks, Diamond Sports Network, and they were going to be involved. Bob, thank you very much with Paul and Craig and Smokey. What does this signal, in your opinion? Is this dipping their toes in the water or much bigger than that?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. First of all, thanks for having me on again. So it's great to be with you guys. I think from a Diamond standpoint, I really think they kind of pulled a rabbit out of their hat here to get Amazon to come in, supposedly committing $115 million for 15% of the company and taking over, I guess, for all intents and purposes, their direct-to-consumer offering, which has been pretty much of a disaster for Bally's. They've had a lot of, or Diamond, had a lot of technical issues with their direct-to-consumer offering. So I think having Amazon and with their experience with the NFL, that's certainly going to help. I think, to get back to your original question, I think for Amazon, clearly they didn't do this, $150 million. It's not a lot of money for Amazon, but Amazon doesn't just throw money around either. They're very judicious with their sports acquisition, costs and what properties they buy. So I think they've got another plan for this. Now, whether that's, taking more of an ownership interest, and apparently they have the right to put another $50 million in the next year and up their percentage ownership. But I really think, it's to get some understanding, a little bit of understanding of the RSNs. They own a piece of the Yes Network in New York. So they've been on the inside somewhat, but this will get them in a little bit further. And I think for Diamond, who will be getting rid of the Bally's name, which I think is a good idea, it's a great win. Now we just got to get it all through bankruptcy. The bankruptcy judge has to approve all this, and the creditors, and that apparently the leagues have to approve it as well. So it'll be an interesting couple of weeks to see if they can get this thing over the finish line.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing for Bally as a company as well, because this didn't work well for them at all.
No.
So, Bob, can you, Diamond, which is Sinclair, right? That was Sinclair's wing of trying to get into the RSNs. What ultimately, did they just get too far out over their skis with this that enabled them to get there, to wind up in bankruptcy court?
Well, that's a good question, Paul. I think it's a combination of things for Diamond. Number one, they probably overpaid. Their timing probably wasn't the best when the cord cutting, kind of really accelerated. They had significant amount of debt that they used to purchase the RSN. So you're losing subs. You've got an inordinate amount of debt that you're trying to service. And, then they just had some issues with a couple of specifically Major League Baseball. They got into some kind of head-on confrontations. That's usually not the best way to run your business if you depend on those people for your content. But, they took some people off. And so you have those things. And ultimately, Sinclair's pretty much out of it. They still have some ownership interest, but they've written off pretty much the entire investment and really have no they're providing some technical services and some administrative services, but for all intents and purposes are out of the management of the RSN group.
It cracks me up when we hear, and I know what you're saying, that throwing $100 million at something is not a big deal for them. And then maybe they can add another $50 million. They have all the money they've ever want, but they always want more, and it's because they are judicious and they're not just going to throw it out there, which is always what you mentioned about the Pac-12. So having said all of that, does that start any kind of Amazon, Apple, et cetera, starting to view or look at what the other one's doing?
I would assume there's some looking over their shoulder. Another thing that came out today was, and Amazon was very busy. They signed a deal with the NBA to air games in Mexico. So, and the word out on the street is that they are very interested in some portion of the NBA rights that are up for bid. So I think, they keep getting a little bit more involved, and people are definitely becoming more comfortable with streaming. I mean, the Peacock game with 23 million viewers, that was, certainly exceeded any Amazon game. And the most important thing was, from a technical standpoint, it came off flawlessly. So the properties will be more and more comfortable with streaming. It's just coming up with the right mix between kind of traditional linear as well as some digital streaming stuff that might be behind a paywall.
Bob, for Amazon, I mean, this is, they're just growing and growing and growing, and there's no way to stop them. How do you think in that chasing that maybe some of the other streamers that they're not Apple, but I know that there's some talk about Paramount and Warner's, or I guess the Max coming together, because that's a bit of a mess. And do they start maybe trying to get into sports more than they are? I know Paramount has a little bit, but more because Amazon's doing this and you got to somehow compete with them.
I think, that's a good point. I think there's going to be some consolidation, and that's usually what happens in the media world is everybody tries to do it on their own. Then they realize they can't necessarily do it on their own. So then they merge, and we're getting to that point. I think that's, the WBD and the Paramount discussions you hear floating around is certainly epitomizes that kind of a scenario that could be getting ready to happen.
Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports CEO, with us on 365 Sports. So the NFL Network and ESPN was another one of those stories that kind of popped up. Is that sleeping with the enemy, or what is that?
I don't know how to term that one. I think, it's certainly it's called a marriage of convenience. And
yeah,
I think it could be something that could be good for both parties. The NFL Network has really kind of struggled. I mean, the network looks great, but it's always kind of struggled from a distribution standpoint and a rate standpoint, and they've always felt they should get more for it. And hooking their wagon to the horses that ESPN has certainly could be a benefit to them when it comes to distribution and distribution leverage. I think also that ESPN could help with the product, the overall product that's available on the network. And then the flip side for ESPN is, it certainly cements you to with what is without a doubt your most important product. ESPN is all in on the NFL. There's no other way to say that. So you want to the extent you can, cement that relationship and doing some sort of a deal where there's equity swap of some sort or joint ownership. That certainly would effectuate that pretty quickly.
Do you feel that Disney and ESPN are coming out of the woods to their struggles from a year ago?
I think they're still pretty deep in the forest, but I think there's, a lot of it just has to do with the economy and if we can kind of see an end to the cord cutting, and even if there's not an end to the cord cutting, just coming up with a rationale that is a combination of streaming and linear that, works for everybody from a financial standpoint. And the sooner we can get to that spot and everybody knows how they're going to operate going forward, then you can start making some plans. There's some deals still that have to be done. You've got the NBA out there, you've got the UFC out there, you've got the CFP playoffs out there with the additional games. So people are going to have to decide kind of where they're at here pretty soon on going forward and how much money they have to spend, because there's some bets that are going to be made.
Bob, is there a strategic problem? The economic system that pays all the bills for college football is either appears in a decline, pay TV, or not producing the value that's needed to support what they have currently or in future rights fees? You mentioned the college football playoff.
Well, the money's not going to flow freely forever, and nothing's going to continue to just go up in a straight line either. So there's going to have to be some ulterior revenue streams that come forth, and whether that's related to gaming, data, whatever it is, there's certain things that the collegiate world, I think, needs to monetize better than they have to this point. The professional leagues seem to do a much better job with things along the lines of those areas I just mentioned, and licensing and premium events, experiences, things along those lines. So I think from the collegiate standpoint, they're going to really have to get into the deep weeds on how to make the experiences better and how to grow revenue streams in which to this point have been untapped by them.
I now have learned how to use YouTube TV, which, if you knew me, that's an accomplishment. I did it because the Texas-Oklahoma game, the Texas-Alabama game, I'm not sure what was going on there, but I couldn't get it unless I got it on YouTube TV. How many, where are they in this entire conversation? Are they even a player?
Well, YouTube TV really, from a video standpoint, has kind of like three products. They've got, you just go on YouTube and watch videos, and whether that's, cuddly puppies or guys doing stupid stuff, which there's a lot of that on there too. And then they've got YouTube TV, which is their cable-like product, which is probably what you're talking about. And my guess is you went on there because you had a Tegna station on whatever your existing thing was, and you were blacked out. They dropped it, so I had to do the same thing here with DirecTV and the NBC affiliate. And then their third property is the Sunday Ticket, which I thought they did a great job the first year with that. No real technical issues to really speak of, and they came up with some of those game casts where they grouped 3 or 4 different games together, which I thought was really well done. So they're certainly a player. I think what they have to try and figure out is, do they want to be a rights owner or do they just want to be a distributor? And which is what they've primarily been in the past. Certainly they bought the Sunday Ticket rights, but they're not having to produce anything. All they're doing is re-airing the CBS and Fox feeds. So they're really they own the rights. They're really just a distributor of those games. So what YouTube/Google has to figure out is, do they want to actually buy something, or are they just comfortable being a distributor?
My only technical recommendation to them on next year they do it with college football as well on YouTube TV, is let me pick the 4 games as opposed to you doing that, which I think is probably a pretty easy thing for people at Google to program.
You mean like when there's the drop-down level, you can pick one game, or you have 4 different, almost like picture in pictures back in the day?
4 in a box.
Yeah.
And so the only problem I had with it is if I wanted to watch these 3 games and then another one that was in another one, I would have a game down here in the corner that I'm like, I don't really care about this one. I'd rather have that one in here with these other 3. But that's a pretty minor complaint, that I think is easily solvable. Bob, we had you on so much about realignment and rights and all that. The ACC and Florida State are about to locking horns right now about the grant of rights and how you get out of it and who's going to pay what. I do have one question, because you would know, because you've seen and held grants of rights in your hand. Why would the ACC have to have this under lock and key like it's the Magna Carta?
That's a good question. I don't know so much the grant of rights was under lock and key, because everybody signed it. So you get a copy. If you signed it, you get a copy of it, and you can find the thing on the internet if you look, if you have 10 minutes and have a good search engine. What's under lock and key is the ESPN agreement. And that's for a reason. You can't have those kind of things floating around. And if you all of a sudden 16 people have copies of it, it's going to get out. And, media companies go to great lengths to protect the terms and conditions that are included in those, because if it's out there, it can be used against you in other negotiations. But what they were requiring, and why it, I guess, took so long for some people to uncover some what we call unsavory clauses in that agreement, was that they required you to go to the ACC headquarters and sit in a room, and somebody sat in that room with you to make sure you weren't taking pictures of the agreement with your cell phone. And you could basically go through it piece by piece, but you could never leave with the deal. And as a result of that, those visits by Florida State, some of the things that have come up is certainly that, there's no guarantee that the rights are going to be there after 2027. And some other things that came out in the court hearing or the filings by Florida State, and, which was also kind of cross-sued by the ACC. So you really need to keep that stuff confidential, and the networks require it. And so the conference was just, fulfilling the obligations that they had to the network.
It did feel to me, reading some of those notes, that I don't know if the bullied strong arm, but that ESPN was able to kind of pressure the ACC into this deal, because I kept wondering, okay, you had it in 2011, 12, whenever they signed it the first time, and then the re-up in 2016, there had been some shifts in that. 2016 is the year that kind of befuddles me, that wasn't a little bit more pushback on that, and that ESPN maybe kind of pushed them to it's now or never, and they didn't want to wind up in never.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I can maybe add to that is they really wanted that conference channel, and that's kind of where 16, they had the leverage there, because that's when they finally got the channel, and they got the launch date for the channel, and they knew it was going to go in 19. And that's the only thing where ESPN probably had the leverage. What happened after that as it relates to, extending certain options or trigger dates for the additional years beyond 2027, I don't know. That's hard to say, having not been in the room on how that went down. But I think that maybe ESPN was seeing some cracks in the business at that point, and probably wanted to extend the date where they had to make that decision to extend that deal through 2036, because for years everybody thought it went through 2036. And I remember last time I was on, Smokey, you asked me, have I ever heard of one of those deals? And I go, no, because I just couldn't envision it. But apparently ESPN, had some leverage as it relates to the ACC, and what I can only surmise is that it had to do with them wanting an ACC network that they had been wanting for years. The Big Ten launched in 2007, and the SEC in 2013, and here they were still sitting without a channel, which they really felt they needed. And so whatever it took to get that network launched, I think they were prepared to do.
Bob, one more question, if you don't mind. And as always, thanks for your time. Of the 23 million or so that watched the Chiefs and also Kansas City and Miami, how much of that 23 million was the markets of television, Kansas City or Miami, or the whatever you call them? And then secondly, do they know yet how many actual new subscribers they have, or is that going to take some time?
Let's say, so it's 23 million, and I believe the Kansas City, the fast Nielsen's I saw in Kansas City and Miami, I want to say it was about a combination of like 1.3 million or 1.4 million viewers. Okay, so we take that out, and let's just say, for roundabout numbers, we're down to 22, and that's 22 million viewers. That's not 22 million households. So when you talk about new subscribers, they're not going to get one for every viewer, because many people watch those games together with other folks in one household. So you have to subtract the households that already had it had Peacock. And so if you want to say, okay, the gain of new subscriptions above that was their incremental acquisitions, and they know, they just aren't telling us yet. It's stuff's all very with it being digitally streamed. They can add those numbers fast, and my guess is they're probably just going to sit on it for a while, and they're trying to really figure out how much incremental gain they had. The other thing is they're also going to want to wait for a month and see how many of those people are still there after a month.
That's right. You can subscribe and then cut it off, right?
Exactly. So you really want to see, what your churn level is going to be, and the churn is basically people who churn out of the property or the product, and we won't know that until February 1st or 30 days after the original. When most people probably the biggest sign up day ever for them was probably Saturday morning, and my expectation is that their biggest disconnect day has either already occurred or it will be 30 days from that Saturday in January.
And then some that forgot. They still have it. They don't even know.
Well, that's the key. That's the Columbia House. That's the CD club. That's how it is.
They still keep coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
No, I would assume that a large chunk of those are Taylor Swift fans, Bob, that saw her, got to see it. It's over now. There's not another game on Peacock, so they can unsubscribe until Peacock makes some sort of deal with Taylor Swift again.
Yeah, until she does a live concert on their station or what.
There was an interesting thing I saw today that NBC or Peacock announced that Oppenheimer movie is coming to Peacock, coincidentally, early February, when all those people might be thinking about disconnecting. So there's clearly some planning being made, and then there'll be a big push because they've got the Olympics coming up. So, I think it certainly attracted a significant number of new subscribers to Peacock. Now the question becomes, can they hang on to them, and can they convert them into long-term Peacock subscribers?
Bob, as always, thank you. Hope you're hitting them straight. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good week.
Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports CEO, with us on 365 Sports. Appreciate his knowledge. Patrick Craig's going to join us later in the week to give some more feedback. Appreciate his time. And it's been a while since we've had Jim Williams on, but he's also there for us to go to because of what they meant to us and you, the audience, during all the realignment and talk about deals and everything.
Jim, very well entrenched in the ACC. And so as that starts to heat up, I anticipate us talking to him more. But it was interesting to hear about, you can't let the ESPN agreement out because then there's those things. And
so many people did not understand when I said about that 2026. They are like, no, that's not true.
Hey, I'm pretty sure that there are people at the schools who, if you weren't there in 2016 when they signed it and you had no reason to go look at it in the interim, that when it came up that okay, how are we in this TV deal for 20 more years? It feels like when you ask that question that had no idea. Mm-hmm. And so then they go and then they find those things that okay, we have an opt-out clause. There's all these different things that could happen. And that would be a pretty interesting point in the trial to me where Florida State is saying, look, we're trying to get out, and here's why, list of reasons. Plus, we don't even know if we're going to have a TV deal in 2 years. So you might as well let us out now because we don't know what's going to happen. Now, then you have to have ESPN come in and be like, no, we're totally going to exercise it, which they don't want to do.
But it's interesting. Again, that was in play, and I remember an administrator telling me that. They were like, there are a lot of people that don't know this. And I was like, well, Bob Thompson didn't know about it or couldn't imagine it, along with others, too, that cover TV, radio, et cetera, TV contracts, and that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the ACC's put out what would you call this? The amended complaint that is out there now today of trying to, I guess the way Pete Thamel worded it, key claim from the ACC, an amended complaint against Florida State. This court, I guess they're seeking the court issue a permanent injunction barring Florida State from participating in the management of the affairs of the conference while it has a direct and material conflict of interest with the purposes and the objectives of the conference. So that's the latest ping pong shot back over the table. You already see, I didn't realize how many lawyers Florida State has. Every school does when something like this pops up, but Florida State's fans, like, that's un-American. You can't say that you can't have, and so the back and forth is, it feels like just getting started, guys, in the courtroom and just the battle in the public between the ACC and Florida State. But, yeah, there's definitely much more to come with all of that. So it'll be fascinating to follow. I know Paul will be all over it, but, yeah, that's going to set the stage for whatever it feels like happens next. And that will be a big thing because the ACC has remained untouched. They've added, but they've remained untouched. But the moment that they get into the mode of starting to get plucked apart, that's when you really see like the whole landscape changes, because that's sort of the last uncharted territory now at this point is the ACC. So, yeah, that'll be fascinating to continue to monitor as it just goes and makes its way through the court systems and all of these arguments back and forth.
And it's good to have people we can rely on to help explain it to us a little bit. By the way, Matt Rule has a new quarterbacks coach and co-offensive coordinator. He's a former coach when he was at Temple and also at Baylor. He's been in the NFL. Glenn Thomas. It was a couple of days ago, I believe, that Nebraska announced that he's now the new quarterbacks coach. Satterfield remains co-offensive coordinator, but will now coach tight ends along with the position he's at. So Thomas has done pretty well. Now, he was with Pittsburgh, the Steelers in the NFL, and Pickett, depends on what you think about him. Or who was the guy that took Pickett's place this year at the end of the year with Pittsburgh? They just played over the weekend.
Oh, Mason Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. You saw Jake Browning, of course, make an appearance for Cincinnati when Burrow went down, who used to be at Washington. A lot of Joe Flacco, a lot of veteran guys that had a chance to make maybe some money for next year based on what they are doing. One quick note. Remember, did anyone see the Patrick Mahomes helmet crack?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, it was like, you look at it, you're like, man, that doesn't look good. Well, Vices, the 0-2 helmet, we've had one of their representatives on about 2 or 3 times since they became part of that business in the NFL. Actually, the cold weather and the way the helmet is built creates that. They don't want it to happen, but it wasn't like anything that could have injured Patrick Mahomes, unless maybe a piece of plastic stuck and, got hit and bleed a little bit. While outer shell damage is not ideal, the 0-2 helmet did its job of protecting him during a head-to-head impact during unprecedented cold temperatures. The exclusive multi-layer technology employed by Vice's helmet model utilizes a deformable outer shell. Impact absorption. You've seen cars when they've had a wreck now where it looks like, my God, that car's totaled, but a lot of it is the giving away. So they released a statement on the Patrick Mahomes helmet that looked pretty awful when you saw that happen. And it was head-to-head. It was helmet-to-helmet inside, I think, about the 10-yard line of Miami. So there's a note and response for them. All right, we have Babe Laufenberg at 5:05. We want to break here? What do you guys want to do? I got a couple of other notes to get to.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's a good promotion, I guess, for Vices to be able to say it wasn't our helmet. But, I mean, you could see him struggling to get a helmet that fit on the sidelines multiple times.
He's got some hair now. You're right.
He's got a lot of hair. And I just figured that's got to shrink in the cold. Everything does, right, to some extent. So, I'm sure it was hard to get the right helmet there in that situation with his hair and all of that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, I guess it's good unintentional advertising for that company. But, the helmet game's come a long way from Don Beebe wearing the Brainiac helmet to the big clear, like, who are we talking? Caden Salter's helmet. Yeah. And to now where you got it where it's streamlined now. Like, they have it back to being more streamlined looking, and it's not like, oh, that's clearly a concussion helmet where it's twice as large as the usual ones. But another Alabama guy has made his
boy. I said, oh, boy. Good.
Another Alabama guy has made his decision, and unfortunately, TweetDeck doesn't work like it used to, but Antonio Kite, Alabama cornerback, has transferred to Auburn. So
do you think?
See, now wait, I got to talk about this.
Yeah, okay. Do you
originally
think,
recruited by Charles Kelly, 3 years of eligibility remaining.
and Charles Kelly's back there at Auburn.
Yeah.
All right, I got to talk about this.
I know, because we talked about it off the air yesterday. I wonder, so when Antonio Kite goes into Auburn, is it like when, what's this? His first name was Adam in the Mighty Ducks. When the kid from Adam Banks, is it like when Adam Banks walks into the Mighty Ducks locker room?
Yeah.
Is that how it is? Like, I'm just here to play hockey. You know, I just
cake eater.
yeah. Is that how they treat him? I don't know.
Garrett,
I think that in this era that these players, they just know what the deal is.
Right.
They know it's all about business, and it's not these loyalty, things that we always kind of figured it was or felt like it was and was in that way very much the case for the longest of times. Like it was bitter, between these schools. And now I think there's still some element of that when they take the field in a game, but off the field, I feel like Antonio Kite doing that, it's going to rub Alabama fans the wrong way. But I think for the players, like they know what's up. Like, hey, shoot, if anything, I think they're going to give him a round of applause, Paul. They're going to be like, hell yeah, come on, man. Like we can get better, and you can certainly help us do that. So yeah, come on over, pal. That's interesting though to cross enemy lines like that. So yeah, Antonio Kite, the latest Alabama ex to make his decision, and he is going right across enemy lines to the Auburn Tigers.
So
it's a generational difference, clearly.
Alabama
for sure.
and Auburn
Yeah, for
is
sure.
probably the most heated, hated rivalry in college football.
Yeah.
I know Texas OU is a big deal, and Michigan-Ohio State is a
that's
big deal. But Alabama-Auburn, I think people have broken up families over that, and maybe even marriages and friendships.
There's no little brother Michigan and Ohio State. There's no little brother
Texas
OU.
Yeah.
Like they're on equal footing and hate each other. Like that's how it is. As where with Alabama and Auburn, they're not on equal footing. Like Alabama's Alabama. Auburn's had a really good history and a better history than most. But their problem is their in-state rival is the greatest college football program ever.
Yep.
So that's what makes it worse in that Auburn and Alabama hate each other a lot because one of them is always going to have an inferiority complex about it. And it's made them a little bit crazy, especially on their alumni side, because they don't know how to react to Alabama's continued success. So it is weird that you would, I'm going to go in the transfer portal. Nick Saban's not here anymore. Okay, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to Auburn. And I think it's probably good about the next generation of young Americans that they don't pick up our petty biases.
Is it different if a player goes from Alabama to Auburn compared to Auburn to Alabama, or is it both still uncomfortable and hostile? Yeah.
I mean,
it's still something that it's taking, when Evan Stewart entered the portal, and I thought he would end up in Austin. And again, I see some, he's not going to be a fit because the culture there has changed, et cetera. But I was like, man, that kind of, I'm going to have to get used to that.
Well, I mean, Casey Thompson spurned where his dad went to go to Texas, and now he's at Oklahoma to finish his career after 5 other stops.
Okay.
So
Casey Thompson, especially based on when his dad played at Oklahoma, went to their two biggest rivals.
Yeah.
Because Nebraska was their other big rival when his dad played at Oklahoma. So, there's...
And you had, I forget his name, the Oklahoma State player who went to Oklahoma this year, and I think they've had various instances of that over the last couple of years and maybe various sports, but there was one player in particular who I'm forgetting his name.
Like a lineman, I think he was.
No, he's a defensive player.
Defensive lineman.
Okay. But yeah, he did it, and I'm sure obviously Oklahoma State fans were ticked and basically you can't do that, but yeah, you can. Yeah. And you know what? And he doesn't care. And you know what? He's sitting there boomer soonering it up like it's no big deal. So yeah, I think that's an old mindset of that it's all bad blood and you don't cross enemy lines and all that. That's out the window. There might still be some cases where there's an Ohio State family and their son enters the portal and under no circumstances will they let him go to Michigan or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's still some of that, but for the most part, I think that young people today just understand that everything's a business and everything's just about making money, and that's for better or worse. I think the mindset.
Trace Ford was the player
Trace
from
Ford
Oklahoma
is
State.
who I'm thinking of. Thank you. Yeah, Trace Ford. I was going to look that up in the break, but yeah, thank you for going ahead and answering that question. So yeah, that's another part of the way that it is nowadays. Is the loyalty or whatever is not quite what you think that it was or what you hoped that it was once upon a time.
Kim Coulter, your point, Paul, was accurate. That being said, Auburn does have 6 national titles.
Yeah.
Little brother, hell, we're all little brothers or something to Alabama because of the numbers that they have. Yeah, their number was 16 or so national titles, and none of them are flippant or like flimsy.
Yeah, I think
none
there's
of them
like
are made up.
one or two you could sit there and say, like, well, this was, I don't know. I looked at it a long time ago, and it was like years ago at this point, so I don't even want to say for sure. But I remember thinking there was a couple of those that they had claimed at one point, but then they won like 6 more since then, since I last looked, so who cares? I mean, they won more since I last looked than Ohio State and Oklahoma have in their entire history, or as many. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. They have to keep track of it, how many that they have. But, yeah, Auburn's no, like, pushover, nerdy little brother that's never won anything. That's for sure. But they are, compared to Ohio State, Michigan, and Oklahoma, Texas, that is a different situation because they are in-state, and it is looked at as one is better than the other. But, yeah, they're not a pushover by any means.
All right, we're going to take this last tweet. This is a critical transfer. Alabama, the mascot, Big Al, has entered the transfer portal.
Damn, man, he's gone too?
I mean, it looks like he needs to get into that strength and conditioning program, but he's got a good little stiff arm I think he's about to do. I saw that with the Husky, the dog. Looked so cute, and yet it was disappointed. So we're going to see a little bit of that. That's funny. I enjoy that. I enjoy what it could have been any team that has been ravaged. UT Parking said it's interesting that now some media, are now saying that the transfer portal is a bad deal because Alabama is getting rated. Josh Newberg is who he brought up from On3. He's also covers Colorado. Listen, the portal is what it is. I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me. I'd rather see some schools maybe not get who they're getting, but it is today, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, all of a sudden a lot of NIMBY, huh? Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
It was okay before.
Yep.
But not in my backyard. All of a sudden, it hits your territory. So, yeah, that is interesting to see. Of like all of a sudden, there's the guy with the big elephant logos. Like, this transfer portal thing's out of control. It's like, welcome to reality and where everybody else has lived for the last 4 or 5 years, however long it's been. That's all it is kind of a reality check for Alabama fans because this is what everybody else has been dealing with, and it just hasn't affected you as much as others.
You're right. Now they can live like the rest of us, or most of us. Coming up, Babe Laufenberg, yet another eyeballs and ears and brain, former player, analyst of the Cowboys on what's next. Mike McCarthy, what about him or others? This is 365 Sports.
It's the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat on the Loop in Waco, and also starting the 2024 kickoff. Outstanding year-end closeout deals last month. Huge savings on some of the most versatile and luxurious vehicles in the market now. 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with $15,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. Or how about the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, $12,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. And the Jeep deals will blow your mind. 2023 Gladiator Overland, $13,185 off MSRP, and every 2023 Gladiator gets 15% off MSRP. Amazingly hot deals include the Grand Cherokee, best-selling SUV ever, and all the 2023 models are 10% below MSRP. The 2023 Jeep Compass and Jeep Renegades are also 10% off and below MSRP. Don't wait too long. The incentives expire on January 16th, so you have a couple of weeks to do that. Inventory dwindling, time is running out, but what a great start to the year. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
I say this not just because he's about to join us. I say it because it's true. Babe Laufenberg, at what he does with the Cowboys Radio Network with Brad Sham, it is just cream de la creme. It's the best. It's really that good, and he knows how to explain things. He played the game, and he's great at analyst work, and also as a guest with anybody, including us right now. Babe, it has been 10,200 and some days since the Cowboys last played for a championship. Is that just silly that I bring that up?
No, I didn't realize it's been 10,000 days, and I know the years. I know all the other, how many teams have not been there, but I've never heard that you put it into days. First off, thank you for the kind introduction there, Smoak.
You're welcome.
And I was hoping you'd go on a little longer, to be quite honest.
Well,
really have to talk Cowboys?
Award-winning, and just a great guy.
No, I'm kidding.
10,214 days, exactly.
And you know what's funny about it, Smoak? First off, I don't have the answers. Obviously, everybody's trying to find the answer and do this, do that. If I were in that position of power or authority, there's just not an easy answer to any of it. And the funny thing is, when you look at, McCarthy, obviously, I think he'll be back. I think he should be back, by the way. But they've run the gamut. They've had the guy from Jimmy's staff, right? Jimmy Johnson, Dave Campo did it. And then they had Parcells. They had the Super Bowl winning coach. They had the guy that's going to change the organization. They had Wade. They had Jason, who at the time was the bright assistant, right? The bright, young, up-and-coming guy. Here comes McCarthy. Won a Super Bowl. Had a history of success in the league. And they just cannot seem to get past that hurdle of the playoffs. Obviously some good regular seasons, but as we all know, just can't get to the Super Bowl, can't get to the NFC Championship game, and this year they couldn't get to the divisional round.
Babe, if you look at other teams that have, I'll just compare Washington to the Cowboys. They're in the similar position. They're like just only a couple years longer, right?
Right.
Washington's in the position because they had a terrible owner who every decision he made compounded and made everything worse.
Yes.
That is not the Cowboys situation. They have had ebbs and flows, as every team does, but they're on the up most of the time. I mean, 3 12-win seasons in a row. I mean, if you told that to a Browns fan, they'd be, which crossroads do I have to go meet the devil at? That's what they would do. Are we at the point now where they have it is now going to be some sort of mystery box they finally open and figure out this is what they're missing? Because they seemingly, like you said before with coaches, have tried almost everything.
I think it's the Hellestray factor. That Dale Hellestray, without him.
So it was the triplet plus Hellestray.
Yes.
That were responsible. Oh, I love it. I love it. Quick Dale Hellestray story. And for those of you who don't know, Dale Hellestray was the long snapper, the deep snapper, punts, extra points, field goals for the Cowboys during their 90s Super Bowl run. And Helly used to always, we would do the post-game show outside the locker room, Brad Sham and I, and we would have a player. Well, the player at the time, they got like $2,500 worth of stuff, you know, restaurant stuff, free pair of Lucchese boots, things like this, right? And all they did was stand there for 3 minutes. Okay, you know, how was the game? Great. Good luck next week. Thank you. And we gave them $2,500 of stuff. So Helly, who I think still has the first nickel he ever earned in the NFL, he would always say, "Babe, when do you get me on the show? When do you get me on the show?" Because he wanted the gift certificates, right? And I said, "Helly, you know the way this works. You snap one over the holder's head on a crucial field goal at the end of a ball game, we're going to want to talk to you." I said, "You're too good at your job. You know, what are we going to say? Walk us through that third extra point snap, Dale." Well, you know, Helly. So Helly was a trip.
I'm surprised he didn't do it on purpose. I mean, like a 35-7 lead or something. Yeah.
You know, that's why I told him, I said, "I'm going to know when you're going to retire, because that last game of the year, just to get the $2,500 gift certificate stuff, you're going to sail one over the punter's head, so we talk to you."
Babe Laufenberg with us on 365 Sports.
But Babe, are they at a point where they it's if they had a checklist of all the things that they would want to do to try to change and get this, there's really outside of something they have never thought of and maybe no one's ever thought of, have done all those things over this time. So again, they're kind of in the weirdest spot they maybe have ever been in this, in that, I mean, I don't know, what answer you could give them about, what do you do differently?
No, I agree 100%. That's why I said if I were brought in there, I don't know what I'd actually say. And when you look at the talent on the roster, you say, well, you know, we couldn't pass protect. Well, no, their offensive line was pretty good. Well, we didn't have any receivers. No, the receivers were pretty good. Well, we need a quarterback. Well, the quarterback is going to finish in the top 5 of MVP voting, right? Well, we need a corner. We need somebody to go cover people. Well, Jerome Bland led the NFL in interceptions and set a record with 5 returns for touchdowns. You know, so the list goes on of, hey, can you rest the passer? Yeah, we got all these guys. But then you put them all together. And how that happened Sunday, I would never be able to explain. You won 16 in a row at home. You're favored. I mean, everything. Green Bay was such a young team. And, I mean, the receivers, they did not have a single receiver, be it tight end or wide receiver, who had been more than 2 years in the league. Their top 2 tight ends are rookies. 3 of their top 4 receivers are rookies. I mean, it was just incredible that team came in. I could see them winning, by the way. I mean, I did not discount the fact that Green Bay could win the game. They've been a hot team. The quarterback's been hot. They got Aaron Jones back the last 3 weeks, and he made all the difference in the world to them. But I never saw just a demolition of 27-0 before the national anthem finished. That was crazy.
They pay Dak a lot of money. He's earned it. It's part of what is that quarterback position, the going rate, whatever you want to say. He had a spectacular regular season. And I brought this up to Paul. I don't know when it was, Paul, but I said, it's almost as if he needs the defense to have a pick 6 early, or they get a cheap fumble in the red zone and score. But then again, it because he does seem to play a little uptight. And I get it. There's a lot of pressure on him with that star. But then if he needs that, then why are you paying him $50 million, right?
Yeah, and I cannot climb inside Dak's head as to does the pressure get to him. But, there's pressure throughout the season. There is pressure to win these games. It's not like suddenly you get into a stadium and all of a sudden you look up and you go, oh, my goodness, there's 80,000 people here. That's week in, week out. And you're playing good teams. And you do have big games during the course of the regular season, and he's played in a lot of big games and played well. You go back to the playoffs last year, no less an authority than Troy Aikman, who was doing the game, for TV last year. I always tell him, by the way, Smoak, I said, how's it feel to know everybody just turns the TV set down and puts the radio on to listen to Brad? He said, well,
oh my goodness.
Every time he would do a game, we'd see each other in the field. I said, how's it feel to know nobody's really listening? He always, he said, well, there's a couple of people who don't have radios anymore. And I said, yeah, okay, you're right. You probably get a couple. But after that Tampa game, he said, that's the best I've seen Dak play. And that was a playoff game. It was on the road. It was against Tom Brady. Now, Tampa was I think a 9-8 or 8-9 football team, but he played great. So I don't think the playoffs get here and Dak Prescott suddenly tenses up. But I cannot argue against the fact that in these three most recent losses, the two to San Francisco and this one to Green Bay, he did not do anything to help his team win. And this one, he cost his team. I felt like the other two, he just didn't play well enough, again, to help them win. He didn't make the plays that you need to help your team win. To your point also on, getting turnovers, taking the ball away, this defense is just not a defense. Well, let me rephrase it. It's a defense that's built to play from ahead.
Okay.
They're light. Let's get the pass rushers going. But if that other team is able to run the ball and you don't take a lead on them, and I thought it was very instructive that Matt LaFleur, Green Bay won the toss. And we always see teams now, right? They defer. They want to double dip, try to get the score before the half, come out, they'll get the ball in the second half. He took the ball because he wanted to put the pressure on the Cowboys. And they sure enough did. They went 12 plays, 75 yards. All of a sudden, Cowboys are down 7-0. Not that they panicked, but I thought that was very instructive, the way he wanted to play the football game, Matt LaFleur. And sure enough, they got the ball, and they went down and scored, and the Cowboys played from behind the rest of the game.
Babe, you said earlier that you think that McCarthy will be back and that he should be back. 3 12-win seasons in a row. That there's that. Do you think that his position is made more trepidatious in that there are some guys out there, that one in particular that may make Jerry Jones say, well, if I can get this guy, then maybe that's what I have to do, because now we're in desperation mode to figure out that last little X factor to get over the top.
And the one in particular would be Belichick, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah. I just don't see that happening. I don't see it working. I don't see Belichick wanting to be here. There are so many things involved when you bring Bill Belichick in. And it was funny, when Bill Parcells was here, I think those were 4 of the most unhappy years of the owner's life, because Parcells kind of ran everything, right? He was the voice at that time. And if Belichick comes in, he's going to be the voice. So I just don't think the owner, and Bill Belichick would work out, again, from both sides. And if I'm Belichick, if he were to take an interview here, which again, I don't think he will, it wouldn't be a situation where the Cowboys were interviewing Belichick. Belichick would be interviewing the Cowboys to say, okay, well, we're not going to do this. Okay, I'm done with this. We're done with Hard Knocks, right? We're done with all the auxiliary things that come with this football team. I think Belichick would be interviewing the Cowboys, not vice versa, to see if it could work.
Babe, they've had success. It's not like, obviously the standard, the star, all that means certain things because of the greatness of Tom Landry than Jimmy. But again, that bar is higher than that.
Well, in fairness, people talk about expectations here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We all, right? The expectation is they're not going to make it to the NFC Championship game. And I don't say that snarkily, if that's a word. I'm not being snarky or sarcastic or not taking a shot. Expectation by the very definition, right, is you're expecting something to happen. And I think if you're 35 and under, all you're expecting is to see your Cowboys maybe get into a playoff, maybe they win a game, and then they exit. That is the expectation. So, gosh, we go back to Roger, and I hate to say because Troy is not too much younger than me. I like to think as Troy as recent Cowboy history. That was 30 years ago,
Jeez.
But these teams now, Dak Prescott, the rest of them, they're paying for the sins of the 27 years of football that came before them. And so they're lumped in, boy, you guys can't get over that. Well, this team, every team switches by you have about 25 to 30% turnover. So, this team had nothing to do with the team that collapsed in 2007 to the Giants or whatever, right? But again, they're paying for the sins of those teams. And so the pressure does keep building.
Babe Laufenberg, Cowboys color analyst, with us on 365 Sports.
Well, Babe, and the Cowboys, when it comes to the quarterback, I know that there are some people that are like, well, let Dak play it out and then give him a prove-it contract that he can win playoff games. But financially, that's not even reasonable because they'd have to take a near $60 million cap hit for just him. So people better get comfortable with Dak being the quarterback for at least another, I would say 3 years minimum before that is really the prove it year, right? If they haven't done it by then, because they've got to get that done, because they've got to get CD done and Micah Parsons done, and Tyler Smith eventually on down the line.
Yeah, and again, I may be in the minority, and I know everybody after that game wants to fire everybody. I think Dak can win for you. I think he can take your team to a Super Bowl. He did not play well against Green Bay, and he admitted, I don't want to say admitted, he said, I sucked after that game. But if you told me, I always look at it this way, if you gave me the team, I'm the head coach of Team Red, and said, Dak Prescott's going to be your quarterback, I'd say, okay, I'm good. I can win with that, right? There's some guys I'd say, hey, you expect me to win with, and I'm not going to name names because my name would have been among those people back in the day. But, there are certain guys who say, God, I can't win with that. But you give me Dak, I say, I can win with that. We can figure out a way to win here. So, I'm a firm believer you keep knocking on the door, right? And one day you're gonna bust through. The ball's going to bounce your way. I think that's the greatness of Pittsburgh and the continuity that they've had in there, the way they scout, their coaches. They've had 3 coaches for 148 years. And they keep knocking on the door, just like this year. And, you give it enough time, you get to the playoffs enough, eventually you get through. And that's what Pittsburgh has done.
So, Babe, did Jordan Love at times, if you would have not seen the number or Jordan Love, but just his mannerisms as a quarterback, the way he flicked the ball, would you have thought you were watching a little bit? Now, I'm not trying to compare him, but there were some. Oh.
I know exactly where you're going, Smoak. I know exactly where you're going. And I was there. And what's funny is, so this past week, I go back, and I've looked at Jordan Love coming out of college, just watch some tape. And I always look at the quarterbacks. But I went back to look at him because I'm like, the back foot throws, the flinging it, the twisting of the hips, like you say, he looks like Roger. I went back and looked at his Utah State tape, and he looked nothing like that guy. He had 2 hands on the ball. He stepped into the throws. But I think he sat around watching Rodgers for 3 years, and he did. He just took on some of those, I don't know if you want to call them habits, but, and let me just say, he was outstanding in that game. I mean, we all saw him. He made throw after throw, bought time. I just thought for a first-year starter, and I know it's his 4th year in the league, but for a first-year starter to come into that environment, 90,000 people, and play like he did, that's impressive. I have, Mark Murphy, he's the president of the Packers.
Yeah, former Redskins safety, I think it was.
Yep. actually led the league in interceptions in 1983, my rookie year. But I played with Murph in Washington. Great guy. We still stay in touch. And anyway, I texted him after the game, like on Monday, and I saw him at the game Sunday. We chatted. And anyway, I texted him and I said, Murph, gosh, isn't it nice you guys finally found a quarterback? I mean, you go from Favre to Rodgers to this guy who looks like he's going to take things over for the next 10 years, right?
Oh, and the Redskins haven't had one since you were there.
No, gosh, they're searching, aren't they?
Do you like do you like who they hired at GM? It seems like he's maybe a real football guy. I don't know if that makes sense, but he's learned under what they've done.
You know, I don't know him, but yeah, obviously he's been in a good organization. But I couldn't tell you about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But here's the mistake Washington made, and I remember Sally Jenkins had called me. I think it was Sally Jenkins for a column, and Kirk Cousins was still there, and he was on his second franchise tag in Washington. And I said, you can go a long time looking for a guy that's as good as Kirk Cousins. Is there somebody better out there? Yes. But I said, you can go a long time trying to find that guy. And that's exactly what they did. How much better would Washington look if they had Kirk Cousins these last, whatever it's been, 4 or 5 years, 6 years? You know, they drafted Dwayne Haskins. That didn't work. They brought in all these guys. I mean, the list goes on, right? Carson Wentz. They just can't get it right. So their mistake was they had a guy, and that's what I don't want to see. Yeah, I don't want to see the Cowboys do the same.
By the way,
you've got to build around them.
We have a chat room that goes on the side of our YouTube show that we are live 3 to 6, Babe. Babe Laufenberg's a class act. Babe Laufenberg is outstanding. These are for those who are watching us or viewing us or in the chat room. Just wanted to pass that along to you.
All right, beautiful.
So, do you have an off season now? What do you do? Do you?
Do
you get to take a mega break that normally may not be there?
I do. You know, I was the CBS, as you probably know, Smoak, but I was the CBS sports anchor for 17 years. And I enjoyed every bit of it. I just got tired of working nights and getting off at midnight and all that. And so, I'll have a pretty good break here during the off season. I'll do some speaking, things of that nature. But, for the most part now, I just sort of, I'll take it easy for a little bit.
Babe, I'm going to ask you one draft question.
Okay.
Just one, because it's still early. Like, again, we're not even sure about the head coach yet, although, like you said, if you've got a little more inside knowledge than most on that. So if you had to say, like, with their draft, they've got to come out with this, because this is a team that's got a lot of talent, what would you say it is?
Yeah, all things being equal, obviously you rate the guys. Let's just say that you rate all those guys at 9. They got to get a run defender, be the linebacker. I don't see Leighton Vander Esch coming back. If I was someone who loved Leighton Vander Esch, I'd put my arms around him, hug him, and say, you had a great career. You came from 8-man football in Idaho. Time for us to be able to walk around and pick up your kids when you get a little older. But I would, be the linebacker. They tried with Mozzie Smith, and I never, after 1 year, say, okay, that guy can't play. But he certainly didn't contribute this year. We'll see, where he goes from here. But they've got to get better in the run game. To me, if you found out linebacker, that kind of sideline to sideline, Luke Kuechly kind of guy, that's where I would go. Excuse me.
Babe, you were in TV, as you mentioned, and then when you had the opportunity to become the color analyst, I've always wanted to ask this question to you. Was that an easy transition for you?
Well, it's funny. The first year of not playing, I'm in the locker room. I'd go into the locker room, obviously, when open media session, and you just kind of felt like no man's land because the media didn't look at you as a media member. They looked at you as kind of a player. And the players now kind of looked at you as a media member. And I'll never forget the one time I'm in there, and of course these are guys again I played with. They were friends. I mean, good friends. Mark Stepnowski, Daryl Johnston, Troy, all those guys. But the one time I'm in there, and they said, okay, all media out. Basically, media session's over. I'm talking to Troy. Troy said, just stay here. You're good. You're good. I'm like, hey, I don't want to be here. He said, yeah, you're good. Jimmy comes by. And Jimmy was in a mood. He was in one of his moods, right?
Yep.
And he just looks. He looks at me. He stops, and I'm like, oh, shoot. So he said, babe, you in here? Are you in here now as a member of the media? Because media was just told to leave. Or are you here as Troy's friend? And it was one of those where your dad asks you a question, kind of, and you're trying to think, boy, what's the right? What is the right answer here? So I was first I was upset with Troy because I'm like, Troy, you got me into this. I was ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I said, Coach, I'm just here kind of talking to Troy or something. And he looked at me. He's like, okay, and just walks off. But it was clear, like, don't do that again.
Yeah. Well, you get a mulligan. Yeah, you get
exactly.
Curvin Richards wish he had a mulligan, but no, you didn't. You got a mulligan.
I got one. It's like bowling where they give you 2 balls to knock the pins down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they don't give you 3.
No.
So I got that one, but it was pretty clear. Don't do that again.
Babe, thank you. Great, always, anytime we can have you on the show. We appreciate you so much, really much of the insight. Have a great night. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys, both of you. Thank you.
Babe Loffenberg, color analyst, Cowboys Radio, and he really is fantastic at what he does. And so, of course, is Brad Sham.
Yeah, I've been doing it a long time, real long time, and always good to hear Babe's voice and just kind of listen in there. And obviously a very disappointing end of the season for the Cowboys, to say the very least, but it's been fun to hear some old voices we haven't heard in a while. Like, I know we talk college sports all the time, but it is – it was one thing when realignment was constant, like every moment you were waiting, like, is Arizona about to declare for the Big 12 or is Colorado, what are they going to do? But now having a season going by, it's kind of nice to kind of dip into some other little buckets on occasion. And certainly the Cowboys and the NFL is a fun one, and that one crosses over, and we'll have the draft build up and all those different things, the Super Bowl coming up. So, yeah, like having some of that crossover, and always like hearing from Babe, and back to the drawing board for another year for the Dallas Cowboys. I do have a note on Caleb Downs if you would like this.
Sure, absolutely.
Steve Wiltfong from 247 put out a tweet about 20 minutes ago talking to Gary Downs, the father of Alabama safety Caleb Downs right now, and he said his son should officially be in the portal in the very near future, and I feel like I just saw a tweet that he was now officially. So regardless, this is the part that is of most interest to everybody out there. He hopes to be in the portal officially in the near future, and then he can start talking to and hosting other coaches, wants to try and make a decision within 48 hours. So 2 days. Start the clock.
Who's
48
the favorite?
hours.
Georgia, Texas, or even FSU? Because they've gotten very much.
FSU is treating,
those are the 3 University of Transfer portals right there.
Norvell has gone into Bama like it's Costco.
It's his okay, you got in the playoff and we didn't, we're taking your roster.
Yeah. Well, I'll also throw this out there. This was a tweet from legendary Twitter troll Lane Kiffin.
Oh, God.
And I'm going to send Garrett, how quickly can we get this up?
As quick as I can.
Well, take your time on that. But and before, let him get him up for Kim Coulter. Y'all need to bring Babe on more often. The Super Chat. Kim, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, appreciate Kim. And I've been wearing the heck out of that hoodie and the pullover as well. So I definitely appreciate that from back during Christmas time. The World Series Texas Rangers. I don't know if y'all knew that or not.
World Series
champion Texas Rangers.
Yeah. Who are in town today.
Wearing the heck out of that.
They're in town. People always come when we're doing the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a luncheon, and then the great John Blake was there, media relations. It was cool. They really did a nice job. Massive crowd that was there. And then it was a long line already waiting outside for when they opened it up to the public, not the private part of it, at 2:30 today. I thought I'd never see the day.
This only means something to people in the media, or if you follow, like if you're trying to get information on the Rangers just on social media and a fan. But there is no one that is better at his job
than John Blake.
Yeah. He is so good at that, and he is. Yeah, I missed being able to cover the Rangers as much as we did. All right, so this is legendary Twitter troll Lane Kiffin, and right after I saw the Caleb Downs tweet, I saw this from Lane Kiffin, who's a mile away from the campus right now. Who do you think one of those coaches going to see Caleb Downs is right now?
He's on the way to see Jalen Milroe.
He'll probably. Well, nah.
No,
he's got
a dude. Yeah,
he's got Dart. Yeah. But they.
He is the best. I mean, there was a time annoying as hell, immature as hell, but he has actually embraced it, and he's funny, and he's a great follow, and I really have enjoyed a lot of his tweets.
Here's the thing. I'm very glad we get to cover him from afar, because I think if I was day-to-day on the Ole Miss beat, I would be like, oh, this guy.
I mean, he's a character, and that's what college football was always, best. It was at its best when you had characters and colorful characters, and he certainly applies and fits that sort of mold of just being a different type of cat, but entertaining. Sure, ruffles feathers. Sure, crosses the line sometimes, as everybody sticks around long enough in college football probably does at some point. But yeah, I've warmed up to Lane as he's gotten older and as I've gotten older, and appreciate the fun that he throws in there and what is otherwise probably too serious of a sport sometimes, and that needs to have some fun. He definitely is there to add that. So yeah, I appreciate that aspect of Lane Kiffin for sure.
I want to bring up a couple more things before we break, and Paul's around the corner with his top 5. But these are some chat. Craig Hummus Hero, when we were discussing the transfer portal, rivals going to rivals. Justin Boren played for Michigan, transferred to Ohio State. I believe his father played at Michigan also. Then the two younger brothers, Zach and Jacoby, played for Ohio State.
So he sits at the kids' table during Thanksgiving, basically. He's on a little side table with the kiddos. Yeah, that's why. Then there's some kids that they want to be disruptive of the family tradition, and they want oh, you went to Texas, Dad? I'm definitely going to Oklahoma then.
Yep.
They want to be different. Like Casey Thompson did the reverse of that, but. Yeah, that's I could see where there's a lot of
Shane
trash
Buechele
talking.
And his family, I mean, they were all. They were all Oklahoma.
Hey, here's a couple more notes. T. Pennington, I know Pennington. Maybe you've been on a few times in the chat room, but there's a couple of cool notes here. I was drawn to this show as soon as Texas, Oklahoma announced they were leaving for the Big 12, hoping UCF would be one of the selections, and of course they were. Listening ever since, these guys do the best job of talking about college sports. Not elitist like so many other national sports talk shows.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, T. Pennington.
We'll take the compliments where we can get them. Definitely appreciate those kind words, and glad to have some UCF faithful a part of the mix that otherwise, without that Big 12 invite, might not have been. So that's been a blessing as far as the realignment puzzle goes, to have Cincinnati and Houston and UCF and BYU, and pretty soon here's hopefully some folks from out west will join the party as well. But definitely been a good thing to have some UCF folks involved. So appreciate you, and hope you continue watching.
And then you never know. Sometimes we've had. Go ahead.
It's really nice to be called not elitist.
Yeah,
no, because
sure.
You absolutely. I even asked you that yesterday.
It's just,
aren't you elitist? Yeah,
I'm not elitist in the sense of I'm not up here. I just, for my own teams, I have high expectations.
All right. Yeah. Yes, you do. And Barry Crawford.
I've been spoiled. So.
On T. Pennington.
Not by your NFL team.
Barry Crawford started watching our show, had a life-altering accident. He had told us about this, a motorcycle wreck that put him in bed for 4 months. Still has a long, long way to go. Barry, I'm always thinking about you. You mentioned that what we do allows you to get through what you deal with, ups and downs of pain, soreness, maybe struggling. Thank you. It's one of the greatest compliments. It is the greatest compliment that we could help you during whatever amount of time you watch us every day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and positive energy and vibes and what all we can send your way, we're sending for certain. So, yes, thank you very much for the kind words. Appreciate you, and best continued wishes to you on your way back.
Even mentioned that it's good for his mental well-being, and that is great.
Thank you.
All right, we have a little bit more to get to. A couple of nuggets. You want to do a couple more nuggets or what? I'm going to ask you guys.
Let's do a couple more nuggets, and then we'll take the break, and then we'll do top
I'm going to ask you guys about this. If I asked you, based on the odds of winning the Super Bowl, and again, you have different Vegas, whatever, who would you think right now the percentages of winning the Super Bowl? This is from the athletic.com staff. This is not Vegas. Who would be the highest percentage to win the Super Bowl?
Baltimore.
Yeah, I was going to say Baltimore, and if it's not them, it's San Francisco.
All right, San Francisco, 33.6%.
Okay, yeah.
Baltimore, 22.6%. And both of them, Baltimore is crushing people. You hope the off week doesn't change that unless you're the Texans. Who's third? Third and fourth are very close.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, going into these playoffs, I know everybody said what they said about the Ravens. I'm still looking at the Chiefs, man. Like, I don't know what the hell that we're
because
blanking
they're
out.
Still alive. Yeah.
It's still Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
It's still Travis Kelce. It's still Andy Reid. Like, I just there's this rush to like have people fall off, and it's like, is Patrick Mahomes in his 40s all of a sudden? No, he's not. Okay, I get Travis Kelce can't catch the ball suddenly. But it's still the freaking Chiefs.
He's catching something else.
Only Rashee Rice is, and he is a rookie who's on his way up.
He's been incredible. But I'm just saying, like, I found it funny the other weekend. Everybody's talking about them like they died. It's like they just moved up. Like they're still right there.
He's 20 years old. By the way, this is his first ever road playoff game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is nuts.
That'll be worth watching just for that, simply just for that. But so I'm guessing it's not the Chiefs, or you would have.
I'm going to say the Lions.
Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo. Okay. Yeah.
KC right below them, and then Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and the Texans are all like combined. Maybe
the Texans are a bit ahead of schedule, but that's a good problem to have. Yeah.
Yeah. They look young, fresh, hungry. They got the quarterback. Their defense makes plays. DeMeco Ryans has been like hitting all the right notes.
Yeah. Look, the Cowboys are out and the Eagles lost, so I can watch this until and now I'm mad at the Packers, but.
Why, Paul?
Because they did what they did, and I have to look at Jack every day, and it just
Jack.
Well, how about Jordan Love though? What a great story!
Oh,
it is a great story.
And those young receivers that made plays, and the defense created turnovers.
He was wearing
Jair Alexander was almost not cleared to play in the game. Where did he play college ball?
Jair Alexander played at I want to say
Clemson.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
Paul, you know?
I think he's at Louisville, but
okay,
Louisville.
I'm probably
I don't know.
wrong.
I was curious about that. He's a character. Remember, last week we had Mickey.
Yeah, you're right. It's
yeah.
Louisville. Yeah.
Louisville.
Boom.
There you go. Yeah.
Draft nerd.
Yeah, whatever it takes. You got the answer right there.
Yeah. So
thank you, MC Gusto, for the compliment on the show today. But and then Kobe, who was it? Savage played at Kansas State, had the pick 6 for Green Bay.
Darnell Savage.
Darnell Savage, excuse me.
Savage, yeah.
Who had the pick 6 for
the
Packers. That was the nail.
Yeah. Look, I just walked in here today and Jack had his Packers hat on, and it was just.
I don't see it.
He took it off because he's warm now.
He's not.
It was like one of those beanie things, with the little stupid fuzz ball on top of it.
Well, it's certainly the weather for it.
Yeah.
If anything.
So,
yeah.
I just say that I would wear a hat like that too, but I'm just embittered right now. Still,
my oldest brother was a Packers fan.
You got to rep in the downtimes, though, man. Yeah. You can't not wear the gear because they're not winning, though. You gotta wear it as proudly as you did before they lost embarrassing fashion on main stage nationally in front of everybody, entire world. Like their Super Bowl dreams crashed and burned again for like the 20-something year in a row, and just awful. And now the coach is on the hot seat again, and they need to restart. But even with all that being said, Paul, you should still wear that Cowboys gear proudly.
Yeah,
Paul, when was the last time you wore Cowboys gear?
I mean, like a week ago. I mean, I haven't,
what?
not on the air,
gear?
but I have, I don't wear it I have a hat.
You got a Romo jersey?
No, gosh. Me and jerseys.
I know.
Look, you have to also have the body.
Craig's good at wearing favorite teams.
You have to, for jerseys, you have to have the body for it. You do.
Not if it's like 99 or double zero.
You still have to have the body for it. Because even those guys, 99, 75, whatever, if you look at them now, Tyron Smith is one of the most cut-up dudes I've ever seen in my life, for as big as he is. He is...
Now he's got a lot of masking tape and duct tape on him.
But there's no,
apart.
And this is going to sound weird, but because I covered the Cowboys for as long as I haven't been in the locker room, I've seen the dude with his shirt off many, many times. He is sliced up. I mean, he's not.
Did you have
No, okay. I'm just saying that all right. He wasn't. It wasn't.
I have a question.
It wasn't Nate Newton. That days are gone of Nate Newton.
Nate looks good, man. He's lost even more weight.
No,
I have a question, Craig. You wear some stuff that has logos on it. I don't do that. I've always been kind of against that, but I almost brought in wearing a really nice, like this type of shirt with a Nebraska logo.
I think you should feel free.
You think? Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought, but I'm proud to be a Nebraska fan, even though they haven't been good forever.
Look, I've got a Cowboys polo I got for Christmas.
What is this? They haven't been good. It doesn't matter if they haven't been. It doesn't matter if the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl. You wear your team's gear.
I wear Tiger Woods stuff, and he hasn't been good in forever.
Okay. You're a fan of that. You can't. No. They're winning. Let me go break out the old team. No, that's the worst kind of fan, and it's been rough. I saw Armstrong Sims make a really great. He's our former producer. Make a really great post. He was talking about once Saban retired that it was a really tough day for all of the Yankees / Chiefs / that formerly Chief were Patriots fans, and before that they were Cowboys fans. But for the Duke basketball loving, New York Yankee loving, LA Laker loving, probably KC Chief loving now fans that also happen to be Alabama fans. It was a really rough week last week for those folks. Really, really tough week for those folks.
Yeah. Again, like I said, welcome to the real world for many of them. All right. We are every weekday, 3 to 6. We appreciate your time. If you don't mind, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Tell somebody else to. Tell them about the show. And if you have time to put in the super chat, we'd appreciate that. We will get to you like we did with Kim when he popped that out today. All right, Paul's Top 5 is next.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 Pac-12 draft prospects. And this will be the last time I can ever do a top 5 Pac-12 draft prospects. More than likely, unless they...
Well, what about you have 3 months.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the top 5. I'm not like, I'm probably going to change it. I'll probably morph it into, here's the best defensive ends, here's the best this and that, right. And so like, I'll do that. But yeah, no, but as far as the top 5 in the entire Pac-12, I could do top 5 unknown or like lesser known.
Groups by history.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, that's it, So there's not going to be another top 5 overall NFL Pac-12 draft picks thing ever.
There will be up until the end of the summer. Yeah. When it becomes no longer the Pac-12.
But as far as top 5s, I can't do this list again. Like I can do the ACC
Oregon
next
State,
year.
Washington State might have 5.
But no, here, next I guess I could. But next year, I can do an ACC one again. I can do a Big 12 one again. I might be the last ACC one next year. We don't know.
Okay.
The fickle finger of death comes for us all, I guess.
That poor logo's not good anymore, is it?
Yeah.
Not for 3-4 months.
Number 5, Braylon Trice, defensive end from UW.
Oh man, I got to interrupt you. This guy was a bad what against Texas.
He was all over the place, and he is their best pass rusher all year. He was the one, and here's why I think he's going to be a good, other than the fact that he's really strong, he's quick off the point of attack, and all those things that you like to say about defensive ends. But the reason I think he's going to be good in the NFL is he has a knack for, and he had this all year, of who's like on offense, their big play was always Odunze and Penix, right?
Right.
On defense, it was, okay, this is 4th and 1. They need to stop the guy, from getting the first down. Or it's 3rd and 10, and let's just go end this game with a big sack here. He was that guy for Washington, is that he's kind of the Johnny on the spot.
I don't remember his full stats against Texas, but I bet he had
2.5 sacks.
5 tackles, 2 or 3 sacks, 2 or 3 pressures, maybe even a strip sack. I don't know.
Tackle for loss. He had that one where he ran through the hole
in a big
of
moment,
the right
too.
tackle and sacked Quinn Ewers too. So, Braylon Trice, a guy I like a lot. Number 4, one, if you're not watching UCLA that much, Laiatau Latu from UCLA, great defensive end, one of the highest ranked ones. I think he's probably slotted in somewhere, right behind Dallas Turner and Jared Verse on most boards as far as edge rushers go. A guy who can really get after the quarterback. 2 seasons ago was great. Was really good this year for UCLA on defense, that was their strong side of the ball for the majority of the season, but a guy who can get after the quarterback and will go in the first round.
Unanimous All-American, won the Ted Hendricks Award and the Lombardi Award. He was that good this year.
Yeah, just won the Lombardi a couple weeks ago, and it was a really fun player to watch for UCLA. He's all over the place, big-time engine or motor, I guess you'd say, and was one of the guys that definitely stood out when you watched any of UCLA this season.
Number 3, Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. He's a tackle, maybe could slide into guard as well, has some position flexibility there. A big road grader of a dude that just knocks you back and was, I know that a lot of people will say, well, what about Martinez? Like they had the great running back and all of that, but I have no problem saying this was the best player on Oregon State's team this year, and they were a really good team. And he was the engine, I think, that kind of made it all go because DJU, even with some great offensive lines at Clemson, never had a guy like this. And that's saying a lot. I'm not trying to knock Clemson. I'm just telling you how good he is. And someone who I'm saying probably the 3rd tackle that'll go off the board after Joe Alt and the guy from Penn State. So he'll probably be the 3rd offensive lineman off the board, and we'll go in the top 15 or 16 picks.
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, I'm wondering what Damian Martinez's year is going to look like next year. I just selfishly follow him because he's from Texas and was an honorable mention on a couple of different occasions for the Earl Campbell Award Player of the Week stuff, and has been now for the past couple of years. But, I've been following along with him, and you suddenly look around and losing a big-time offensive lineman, losing the quarterback, losing the head coach, losing,
wide receiver,
Yeah, wide receiver in Silas Bolden. I mean, like losing. And so, there's going to be a lot of work to do up there at Oregon State. He'll be around to help with it, but I'm just curious if we see his numbers fall, because I wouldn't be surprised given all that the Beavers have lost, but another confident they can keep this thing chugging along.
Number 2. One of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the country, Rome Odunze. I shouldn't be surprised that he's on this list. He's a big play machine. He's a key play machine. He is one of the smoothest, I think, an even smoother route runner than Marvin Harrison Jr. is at this point. And there was like Biletnikoff Award, like it was these two, and there are other guys. Malik Neighbors is going to be drafted really high, and he's someone who's really good, but. For my money, as a guy who's NFL ready, I think Rome Odunze is as good as it gets and can really help them out very well, whoever gets him in year 1, and he'll be a top 10 pick for sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to get some technical breakdown I've been watching his all-22 film for the last 7 months like most draft-nick guys. All I know is I don't need to know that he's a star and he's a special player and he's a stud. And I remember watching the Pac-12 championship game, and I think it was that game. There was like an Oregon fan or two on Twitter, like, Rome Odunze's not that good. He just pushes off, and it's like, you are on crack. You don't think that this guy's good, and he tore them up. He tore just about everybody up. Yeah, he's a dude, man. I love watching him. I thought he looked so cool when he had the bleach blonde, and the way that it was all the bleach blonde hair just looked cooler than anything I could ever pull off in my lifetime. But, he's he's a star and was a lot of fun to watch at Washington. Going to miss watching him and just that offense in general. Like I'm glad that I could just sit there and kind of appreciate how many weapons that were so good that they had and how Penix was able to operate with those weapons. And didn't work out well in the national title game, obviously, but before that, they were so much fun to watch.
Michigan did what not many could, made Penix uncomfortable, which is what we discussed over a week ago. But, I mean, he never seemed like he was ever comfortable. They came at it from different directions. They were better. And then, of course, his throws were off because no quarterback likes to have people all around him in the pocket.
But even then, like Dunze, if you watch, like the throws are off. Dunze was open.
Still makes
He's still open. Absolutely. So, like, he still made some catches, but like some of the ones, like there were two that he missed where Dunze is against this great defense with all these really good players. Dunze, he was making them look silly. Mm-hmm. It's just they couldn't get it done. So
they missed at least one touchdown to him, clearly.
Oh,
and if Penix was better, I mean, they still might not win that game, but he had to be pretty much perfect for them to compete in that game, and he wasn't anywhere close, unfortunately. But, there was receivers running free, and Dunze was one of them.
Yeah.
For opportunities to make plays, and he just couldn't connect with them.
Yeah. Number one. You may not have heard of this guy. I don't know if people have heard of him. He's a little-known guy.
He hadn't played in a while.
Yeah, no. Caleb Williams at USC. I don't really need to go into depth about why he's number one. He's he won a Heisman Trophy. He's spectacular. He's probably going to be the first pick in the draft. If he's not, it would shock everyone. Even if it's not the Bears picking him, somebody's going to trade up and pick him at number one. But Caleb Williams, who is, I think I'm curious to see how many, because now, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the world in the NFL, and Caleb Williams has a skill set that's very similar to his, and we're going to see more quarterbacks try to do it and play like Patrick Mahomes, because Caleb Williams seems to have that ability and is even a better runner than Patrick Mahomes is. He's still got, maybe rough around the edges in spots, but this is as good of a dude as there is in the country at any position.
Yeah, it was not a great year, and certainly not versus expectations, but he's still a super talent. There's no denying that, and he can make some ridiculous throws and has a exciting skill set. So, I don't think any of the shine's really worn off of Caleb Williams. I hate that it's kind of entered personal attack mode now. It's like draft time, let's attack his character, and I understand when it's multi-million-dollar investments that you've got to go and check every box, but that's for the people making the choices, like the public attacks. I think people want to see him fail, right? They want to see him fail. And I know a lot of people in Norman especially want to see just it not work out great for particularly Lincoln Riley. But, I think there's some of that probably for Caleb Williams as well. But, he's still a star, even though they didn't have quite the year that they wanted. And even though he didn't mess around too closely with winning a second Heisman Trophy, and being the next Archie Griffin, or the only other guy other than Archie Griffin to do that. But I still, think he's that top guy that you're looking at. I know Drake May, or I guess there's some other quarterbacks that you could throw into that mix, even though he and Drake May have kind of been the top two guys there for a while. But I'm interested to see with him of just how he handles all of the media, because there's no more. Like, I know he's dealt with media before, but now it's like, no, dude, you gotta answer like the bell no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't just I don't feel like talking today. It's like, no, you got to be out there after the worst loss you've ever suffered, and you got to answer the media. And so that part of it will be interesting to me. But I think he's a fine guy. I don't like the kind of attacks on his character that I've seen a lot of the times, and he's a good player, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he probably. It's some of the protection with father's it might not even been sometimes him.
Right.
It might have been the school. Lincoln Riley's got seems like rabbit ears
and
at times.
And he's still 18, 19 years old. Like, I know he's about to be a professional and all that. And so he's going to answer the call now. Like, he has to. But I get why, like, people pick at him. But I still have full faith, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that regardless of whatever little thing here and there, he's still a fantastic football player.
I hope Washington gets here, Drake May.
I'd love for him to be the Commander's quarterback. Absolutely. Give me that all day.
Yeah, and like for the people that get mad, and a lot of it's probably generational because you're old school and you don't like, he painted the.
Well, he ticked off one of the biggest fan bases in America by leaving to go to USC. You know, that's where I hear a lot of it too, is here in the Oklahoma side of things.
So you can say all that stuff, and it's either like you're a scorned lover, like Oklahoma is, or or you just are old school and you like him. Remember, like judge him by his actions and his like actual character. It's like when people don't like Baker Mayfield, like he's a bit of a smartass and he was drunk in public one time. Like, all right, if that's the worst thing that Baker Mayfield ever does to anybody, then like I think he's probably living a pretty clean life.
Well, you know what? It was true too. He was a bit of an ass, and he needed to grow up, and he did. And now look at him now, all these years later. So I mentioned that not to bog down on that because I just feel all of that's coming like a tidal wave. The character attacks, and we're gonna hear because you can't really pick apart his game too much.
And part of the times I think character attacks are from teams that are trying to like fool the dumb ones.
And if it's not him, it's going to be somebody else that they do it to. But like that's draft season. That's draft season. You get under the microscope and they pick you apart. And he, as a guy who's been under that microscope now for 2 years, and now it's finally his time. I mean, he's going to really be under that thing. So good luck to him in handling all that. But I have confidence he'll be a top 2 pick after it's all said.
He doesn't need to just get ready to throw and be at the combine and do all of that. He needs to be very well versed when it comes to getting peppered like he's a politician. There's going to be some columnists, maybe a handful, no matter what, that want to get him. And he's got to be, be who you are, be honest. But, there's going to be some that come at him just because they may not like him. I don't know. It's kind of silly, but that's probably true. All right, Emery Winter is working on 365 Sports tonight, which is tonight on the local CW at 10:30. Thanks to Josh Young and that great group. Also, Jack McKenzie doing what he does, which is a lot. And Garrett Ross, yet again, weaving and maneuvering through so many different tweets, stories, graphics, images, and also so much more. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. Tell somebody, spread the word. And the chat room, thank you. Also, those who are not a part of that, watch and listen. For Craig and for Paul, I'm David Smoak, our incredible group of sponsors. Thank you. This is, have a great night, 365 Sports.